Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of The Rating Room Extra. This one we're titling Dexter's Sleigh Ride, a festive forensic holiday.
The Rating Room. The Rating Room.
Now Jay, what we're going to be doing in this month's special is we're going to be talking about all things Christmas. 'Tis the season after all. We're going to be talking music and TV and films and all that kind of good stuff. But first, let's get a bit personal, shall we? So, Jay, what does a typical Christmas look like in your household?
So, Andy, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to
Happy Holidays.
non-Christmas sufferers / celebrators.
Yes. Happy festive period. Now, my Christmas, so I'm going to say this, Andy, is what I do now. So obviously I've got 2 kids. So Christmas is a very early start. And my wife moaned at me one year. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, actually, because I was the first one up. I was up at 5:30 and actually woke the kids up. But usually we get up about 5:30, 6 o'clock, do Christmas stockings in bed, kind of see what Santa's, giving the kids. Then we go downstairs. We kind of look at the presents, but so we can't open the presents yet. I put on some Christmas music, I make some hot drinks, and then we start to open Christmas presents. Now, once we've done presents, I've kind of introduced a Christmas tradition. I don't know if you have something, but I didn't have this as a kid. We do bacon sarnies, so that's like a little Christmas tradition for breakfast. It's not something like I said, I had as a kid. I just remember having Cocoa Pops when I was a kid. So it's something we started when we got the house and kids. Then, a bit boring really, it's starting to prep Christmas dinner because we tend to have Christmas dinner at our house. We just have my parents, the in-laws, and we just keep alternating. So that's my typical Christmas. What about you, Andy? Do you have something similar? Do you stay at home or do you go to in-laws or elsewhere? Do you have it? Do you go into restaurants? Some people go to pubs, don't they?
Some people do. I've never been out for Christmas. Since I met my lovely wife, I've been to her parents' house every year. So this year will be our 20th Christmas together. So there'll be 20 in a row. It's funny you mentioned bacon sandwiches because that was something that the in-laws introduced a few years back. Bacon and sausage butties or breakfast butties, kind of 10:30, 11ish, just to fill that gap between presents and dinner. They do a great spread, to be honest, so I always look forward to food. It's all about food, really. As a kid it's all about presents and Santa, like you said, but as an adult it's all about food. It's not about the presents anymore. I've got a son as well. He doesn't really understand Christmas, so it's just another day for him, but with lots more presents. But it's always good to see the look on his face when he finds his latest dinosaur, because he's bound to get dinosaurs. That's his thing. But no, very, very similar to you. And then between Christmas and New Year, we'll have people over for just like a buffet, or maybe like do a meal of my own for my dad and brother. But yeah, nice and simple. I like to keep it.
We do Christmas buffet, tend to be, because we fill ourselves up with food on Christmas Day. Boxing Day tends to be the buffet day.
Yeah, leftovers. The leftovers are always good on Boxing Day, aren't they?
Yeah. And one thing I forgot to mention, Andy, is after doing breakfast is usually spent making kids' toys up. So last year I was doing like doll houses and stuff. So, yes, the joys of being a parent. And I agree with you, Andy. I think once you're an adult, it is very much about the Christmas food. I agree, because as a kid, it's very much getting excited. And I used to be one of those kids that would just struggle to sleep at night. And you just want to, like sometimes, I think some people would go to bed really early, but then struggle to get to sleep, or some people might try to stay up late, but then no, Santa might not come if I'm awake still.
That excitement of the next day, isn't it? That's what keeps you awake. Now, I've got a question about Santa, and if your kids are listening, just cover your ears a second. Do your kids still believe in Santa?
Well, I've got to be careful what I say, Andy, because my daughter is actually in the next room, so we have never explicitly stated otherwise.
Well played.
But I suppose something I read that was quite interesting is, do you believe in the idea of Santa, or do you believe in the idea that all the adults across the world are all in the same line? You know, everyone's kind of got their story synced. Millions of parents.
That's deep. That is deep.
Yeah. So, yes, never explicitly stated otherwise. But, yeah, I remember believing in Santa for a very long time.
See, I don't remember a time when I used to believe in Santa. So I don't remember that time when I stopped. I think it may have been because of a book I had or read as a very young child, which explained the story of the real life Santa Claus, or the Saint Nicholas. So I always had in my mind that it's this historical figure, and then Santa Claus is just based on that. So I'm a bit of a Scrooge in that regards, I guess. But I like the idea of Santa. It's a nice, friendly enough story. My dad, who is in his mid-70s, he still believes in Santa, or at least he claims he does, because he says as soon as you stop believing, that's when you grow old. And he is still a child at heart, which I think that's quite a nice message. And or he could just be a deranged old man who still thinks Santa's real. Could be that.
And Andy, going back to last week's episode, will you be having your Christmas do on Christmas Eve this year?
I will not. As of this recording, I had my work Christmas do last night. Hence the raspy voice you may detect at times. It was a very civilized affair. Nobody drank too much, and nobody got into any trouble. There was no trouble, but it was a lot of alcohol was consumed. A lot of very expensive alcohol was consumed, like about 10 quid a drink, which was for a tight bogger like me, it was a bit of a shock to the system, has to be said. But let's continue our festive fun. Let's talk about Christmas presents, shall we? Either as a kid or as an adult, do you have a favourite all-time Christmas present?
So there's one. So there's been lots of good presents I've had through the years, Andy, if I'm being honest. I don't come from a wealthy family, but I don't know how you've had it. I always had growing up as a main present. And one year, my brother and myself, so at that time I only had one brother, we were very fortunate to actually get an Amiga 500. So I know obviously I'm a little bit older than you, so you might not be aware of what an Amiga 500 is, but it was the computer that kind of changed everything for me. So before that, I was very active, and I used to play football in my spare time. I was one of those kids where you come home from school, you're out playing football. At weekends, you just go out early, just play football all day, build dens, then come home at night. The Amiga 500 changed everything. So it was the Amiga 500. It came with 512 kilobytes of memory. So, that was quite a bit then in those days. And I still think of some of the classic games, actually. So some of these, Andy, you might be aware of, you might not. So the ones that kind of spring to mind is Lemmings, Sensible World of Soccer. I used to love that game. Cannon Fodder, again, is a brilliant game. Speedball 2 is another one. Worms, which I think you probably would have heard of because there's been multiple Worm games on like various platforms as well. North and South was a good game as well. Championship Manager was the first football management game that I got into, and I've played Championship Manager for a number of years. It's called Football Manager now, actually. So I was used to get that every year. And a game called Golden Axe I used to play as well. And I just want to do a couple of shout outs as well to a few games: The Settlers, Civilization, Wings, and Supercars 2. So it brought out quite a few memories. Any of those games you're familiar with, Andy, or this way before your time?
No, I'm familiar with a few of those. I may have even had an Amiga. I'm not sure it was an Amiga 500, but an Amiga of some sort at some point. I certainly remember the Commodore 64, which I guess is of a similar ilk. And I remember the likes of Championship Manager, Sensible World of Soccer. One of my favourite games, and I can't remember if this was an Amiga or a Commodore game, but it was certainly a keyboard-based game. But it was Dizzy, you know, the little egg dude.
Yeah.
Adventures of Dizzy or whatever it was. That was a really addictive game. But it was really annoying because the way I remember it is you'd have like a little bit of a level on the screen and you'd either go left or right and it'd take you to the next scene. And you'd get so far along either left or right and there'd be like a locked door or something where you need to then find a key or find a password or something. So you'd go all the way back and try and find all these secret levels. And hours and hours of fun.
So Amiga 500, so I believe the one after that was the Amiga 500 Plus, and then I believe there was Amiga 1000. But I think at that point I probably transitioned to gaming console. So I can't remember what age I was. I must have been about 16 actually. I actually got a weekend job, and I remember buying the very first console I had was a PlayStation 1, and I remember buying that with my own money, you know, for my little weekend job. So the Amiga 500 kept me going for a good few years. I can't remember when I first got that, but I was definitely in secondary school, and like I said, I used to get up early and just be on it pretty much all day, but I had to share it with my other brother because it was a joint present. But even now, like over the years, I sometimes download a PC emulator. So just download that Amiga 500 emulator and about play the odd game. And I do it on my phone as well. But it's in the Amiga 500. You mentioned a keyboard, but I used to use a joystick. So instead of a gaming control, it used to be an actual joystick. And it's just so hard playing these games now on your little phone. Even though you get a virtual joy pad, don't you? It's not the same at all.
Yeah, I remember downloading a Sonic game for my phone, and you had to kind of use your phone sideways, but then tap the screen, like so you're holding it like a joypad, not a joypad, you know, like the more modern style.
Like a gaming controller. Yeah.
But obviously there weren't buttons, so it's just certain parts of the touchscreen, and you'd hope that it registered what you pressed. So that was quite frustrating. But no, it's funny you mention that as your favourite, because gaming is kind of my theme as well in terms of my favourite present. So I remember as a 12, 13-year-old, whatever it was, getting an N64 for Christmas, and we talked about this in a previous episode. Got the game GoldenEye, which I played for months and months and months. Tremendous game. And the other game I really loved for the N64 was F1 World Grand Prix. I'm a big F1 fan, but I'd say my all-time favourite was probably one that my wife, or my then girlfriend, now wife, got me, and that was the PlayStation Portable, the PSP. And I've got a few games with that, and I got a few. Are they called UMDs, where it's like films or things? So I think called UMDs. And I've still got that. You know, I've not played it for a while, but every so often I'll charge it back up and stick in something like probably something like SmackDown versus Raw, because you can play as general manager, so you can, rather than wrestling, you can like run the show and book the matches and make money, and you've got to like compete against the other show to see which show's best, so you get more ratings, etc. It's, you know, I guess it's the wrestling equivalent of Football Manager kind of thing. But so occasionally I will dig that out, and I've also got F1 2009 for the PSP as well, which is a tremendous game. So yeah, it doesn't matter what console, it's always wrestling, F1, and a little bit of FIFA now and again.
So F1, Andy, I don't know if it would be the same game that I had on the Amiga 500, but I used to play an F1 game, so I'm not into Formula 1. However, I remember playing the F1 game, and you could turn off kind of like certain rules in the game. And I always used to play. I used to like play the game properly in seasons, but I would always, if I just wanted to mess about, I always load up Monaco, and you could drive your car the wrong way. So I would just have the objective of, say I set the laps to 10, I would have the objective is to wipe out every other car before mine breaks. and because you could turn off your own damage as well. So I just go the wrong way, and because it's Monaco and it's obviously streets, you could just cause carnage. So I used to love doing that. But that was like an F1 game, so I can't remember what it was called, but that was fun because I remember I think it's the Brazilian Grand Prix where you go through the start and it has quite a fast winding corner, and I always remember it's either the first or second corner, so you kind of go left and it's kind of a right, like pretty much a right, and you kind of swing. And I always remember if I didn't get the brakes right, I just go flying off that first corner, cutting it and then hitting it like again, like back onto the track. But no, and another game, Andy, because I think you've had PlayStations, haven't you?
Yeah,
or you've got
I've
PlayStation.
I've currently got PS4.
So I don't know if you had a PlayStation 1, and I don't know if they made the game for later consoles. Do you remember a game called Destruction Derby?
Yes, I do. Yeah, that was excellent.
I had that on PlayStation, yeah. Just thinking about crashing Formula 1 cars, I remember doing that as well. So, yeah, causing some destruction. I never had a PSP. I think my first handheld gaming device was a Lynx.
I remember the Lynx. Yeah, I know. I've never had one myself, but I remember them being out at the time. Quite, because they were the answer to the Game Boy, weren't they?
Yeah, because I'm not really a Nintendo fan, if I'm honest. So we've had the odd Nintendo while being an adult, but definitely not as a kid. And it's Xbox. I stopped gaming earlier this year, Andy. I found it was a bit of taking up too much of my time, so I moved away from gaming, and much to the disdain of my little daughter, who keeps trying to get me to play, and I'm going, no, I can't. I'm about grumpy because they're like, no, I've got to be cold turkey. I can't go back on it and try to get hooked.
It's difficult to find the time,
the game.
And you end up using up time that would be better spent elsewhere.
Running an international podcast, Andy.
Exactly. Yeah. We could just be gaming right now, and no one would be listening to us talking what we're talking about, which is about games.
So, Andy, you've asked us what is the favourite Christmas present. Flipping it around, do you have a worst Christmas present?
Two come to mind. One is shoelaces. Don't ask. Just got shoelaces on you. But the absolute worst, and it was the only present I got from said person who I won't name, was a tub of Twiglets. The snack, the very distasteful, dry, boring snack. I just don't know what they were thinking.
So I think you need to add a bit of context with your shoelaces and the Twiglets. What kind of age were you? Are you talking about adulthood or being a child?
In my 20s, for both. So, I'm not too bothered about presents these days, It's for the kids, isn't it, and all that. And I'm a pretty happy guy. I've got a lot to be thankful for. I'm very, very lucky. But come on. It's better to just not bother, isn't it?
Shoelaces, yeah. We've got some random presents as a couple before. I'm trying to think. My mum buys us some random presents, and he's just like, no, we don't. She bought so Andy, I know this is not my worst Christmas present, but my mum bought my wife a sewing machine one year, and I can tell you it's never been used. My wife doesn't do any sewing. It's a random present.
My wife gets annoyed by. I'm gonna out him. It's my dad. He's old and he's very old school in some of his thinking. But several times he has bought my wife cookbooks or sewing kits or something of that nature that he thinks a woman should have.
Does your wife like cooking?
Nope.
No.
No. She will cook occasionally, but I tend to do most of the cooking.
Okay.
But, once is one thing, but when it's like many years in a row, it sometimes is. yeah, it gets a bit much, but he's a bit of an old school sexist in that regard. He's of his time.
Well, I don't recall having anything as bad as your presents, Andy. And I think I'm going to be a bit boring because I don't think I've ever been disappointed per se. I mean, like we both just said, we're older now. So I think even things like socks and pants, which I've asked for again this year actually, have a practical use. I do recall once though when I was a kid that one of my brothers and I, we both used to list a number of films. So you remember VHSs, Andy, you're not that young. And one year, Santa gave us the wrong film. So I got this film, my brother got that film. But actually, those films were on the opposite Santa list. So after we did all the presents, went upstairs, we just did swapsies. So that's the only time. But I can't unfortunately remember what those films were. But I remember swapping the VHS. So Santa does make mistakes occasionally.
He's clearly reading off the wrong list. He's overworked and underappreciated, isn't he? So you got to cut him some slack sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's probably quite drowsy from all the cookies as well.
Yeah. What do you put anything out for Santa?
I don't. It's wasted. But if I did, it'd probably be a note telling him to work faster and make more efficient.
We put out a little a plate with milk because we don't leave alcohol, because I know some people leave alcohol out for Santa, and we do a mince pie and a carrot for the reindeers.
There you go. You got to look after the animals. They're doing the hard work. But we mentioned it's not really about the presents; it's about the food. So here's my next question to you: what would you say is your ideal Christmas dinner?
So Andy, I've never really discussed this with people, so I'm a bit apprehensive about telling you, because I'm gonna tell you what we have for Christmas dinner, and I don't know it's the norm because this is how I kind of got brought up, so I think it's kind of normal, but it might not be. So we've kind of carried on the tradition of, especially my parents. I would have to ask my wife if they did it. So growing up, we would start with a prawn cocktail, we come from down south, so I don't know if that's a southern thing or not. And my dad doesn't like prawn, so you would have tomato soup. So we have a little starter, a little bit of bread, prawn cocktail, which is obviously prawns and salad, with seafood sauce. Oh, I love Thousand Island seafood sauce. Oh, I love that.
You're not selling it to me so far, I'll be honest.
No, okay.
Not my thing, but...
So that's the starter. So the mains, I'm going... So we are quite traditional. However, my wife doesn't necessarily like turkey. So we do have turkey, but we've tried goose, pheasant. We've done, I think must have done beef and other meats. But I would say traditionally turkey, roast potato, stuffing, Yorkshire puds, pigs in blankets, gravy, vegetables. Now I asked my daughter what they would have, and they would say cauliflower cheese, but I don't like cauliflower cheese, so I would keep that off of my list. And I can't remember if you're a big vegetable fan. I've got a feeling you're not.
I'm a real fussy eater. Yes. Yeah, so the vegetables are nowhere near my plate.
So, and then for pudding is Black Forest Gatto, and that's what I had as a kid. So that's like I said, I'm a bit apprehensive because that is how I kind of got brought up. So I've kind of carried on that tradition with my family. So what about you, Andy? What would be your Christmas dinner growing up? But then also, what have you kind of done as with your own family?
So we would never have starters, and we still don't. We tend to just be mains and dessert. So we wouldn't have starters. I mean, last night I had a starter because you do that these days when you go out. But starters at home are never really a thing in my house. But yeah, I mean, what you've listed for your mains is basically what we would have. Now, I do have a question because this is a bone of contention. Roast potatoes and mashed potatoes would be mine. Do you prefer one over the other, or is that too many potatoes if you had the mash?
I find it quite strange when you go to Carveries and you get the mix of roast and mash, because I would never mix potatoes
I
on
love
any
as
of my
many potato
meals.
types as you can get. And particularly because I don't like vegetables, like roast potatoes and
Yeah.
mashed potatoes, that's like 3/4 of my plate.
Yeah, I suppose if you're not getting any of your greens and carrots and stuff, then you need to kind of fill up your plate. But I would say a good quarter of my plate is veg. And then it's like the other bits, because I do like vegetables. But no, roast potato, because I'm not a big fan of mashed potato. I will have mashed potato on, like, say, shepherd's pie and stuff. But I don't like, sausages and mashed potatoes and stuff like that. Oh, it wouldn't be my go-to meal. So would you have mashed potatoes plain, or would you have like a cheesy mash? What would it
Plain,
be?
just plain. Yeah, nothing too exotic. But yeah, it would always be turkey growing up. Pigs in blankets are an absolute must, as are Yorkshire puddings. There's no getting away from that. Like you, in recent years, we've not always had turkey. Sometimes it'll be roast beef, or it might be chicken. But when I cook, I tend to do beef rather than turkey. In the last few years, in the slow cooker for 18, 20 hours or whatever it may be, and it just kind of peels away. I'm quite, it's my one meal that I cook that's okay, because I'm not much of a cook, but that's the one I can get away with. I do it quite nicely. And then pudding, you mentioned Black Forest Gatto. It's a good choice. Growing up would always be Christmas pudding, just because that's the rules. It'd be Christmas pudding, probably with custard or cream. But in more recent years, it would be like maybe a chocolate sponge pudding or trifle, something like that, which I quite enjoy, because Christmas pudding, it's not that great, is it? Let's be honest. It's a bit stodgy and heavy and just...
Yeah, we don't like it. Yeah. So we didn't grow up with Christmas pudding, so Black Forest Gatto is the thing that we kind of grew up on. Last year, Andy, you made that little joke about 20 hours. Because of the volume of guests that we came up for Christmas dinner last year, our turkey that I made wasn't big enough, so I did 2 lots of meat, and I did the gammon in the slow cook with Coke. I think it was like Diet Coke or something to neutralize the salt. And I can't have gammon really because of my blood pressure, so I have to avoid like salty stuff. So yeah, last year we had a selection of meats. So it was I remember being really tired in the evening because it was a long day cooking.
What's the strangest meal you've had? Like if you've been out on a works do or invited out somewhere, what's the strangest meal you've had for a Christmas do?
Andy, I don't go out much, as you probably know. So I remember one year, and I think it's weird because we kind of alluded to this last week when we were talking about Die Hard. So traditionally we don't go out Christmas Eve, but I remember one year before we had kids, me and my wife, my girlfriend at that time, went out with my brother and his girlfriend, and I'm sure we went out for an Italian, which I think is a bit weird, like as in a Christmas meal. But no, because we've always had, as a kid, it was always either at my parents' house or my nan's, and then as a family here, it's pretty much always at our house. So I've never been, because some people go to a pub, don't they, to have Christmas Day dinner and and stay there for the day. I've never done that, so I think I've always been quite traditional. Like I said, when we first moved into the house, we tried goose and pheasant, and they were okay, but we've moved back to turkey or beef or anything. So I won't say there's necessarily anything bad. We've kind of tried different things, like a bit boring, but we tried different stuffings. Pigs and blankets, you can't go wrong. Yorkshire puddings, I would vary going for like the smaller type or the bigger ones, just to mix it up like that. Like I said, my kids will have cauliflower and cheese, but no. And pudding, Black Forest Gatto, I'll probably say we have pretty much every year. I can't remember doing anything different. And starters, my wife might have smoked salmon with prawn cocktail, but I would always kind of keep to prawn cocktail, because otherwise I probably only have prawns less than 10 times in a year. Do you like prawns?
I'm not a big seafood fan now, so prawns. I love prawn cocktail crisps, but they're not the same thing.
They're not, no. What about you, Andy? Have you had any disasters?
No real disasters, but I did go a little bit different last night for my Christmas do, because I went with the festive burger rather than the traditional turkey. So I started with pate, which was really good, but I went with the festive burger, thinking that sounds intriguing. It was basically a double bacon cheeseburger with a pig in blanket on top. that was a festive. It's really nice. Don't get me wrong, really really nice, but it wasn't. It didn't scream Christmas, except for the pig in blanket that was resting on top with a spike through it. It's just to keep it. But then chocolate brownie for dessert. Now that was good. I do love a brownie. But no, yeah, I've never done anything too exotic or strange from a Christmas meal perspective. But I know some people like to mix it up.
I was going to say, my works do are out tonight, and I've been boring and not gone. They've gone to a tapas bar for their works do, which is a bit different.
Do you know what? I've been to a tapas for Christmas as well. That was just brought to mind, but this was made, 13, 14 years ago? But it was during the day, a work thing, and yeah, just various different, I think it was Greek tapas rather than Spanish tapas. Yeah, that was just a small meal, I think maybe 5 or 6 of us for Christmas.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was quite nice. And I know a relatively new tradition in Japan is for Christmas Day meals at KFC.
Really?
I didn't sure where that, because Christmas I don't think is really celebrated in Japan, but it's become kind of something of a tradition in Japan that KFC is the meal of choice on Christmas Day.
Interesting. So Andy, you've mentioned that you've gone to your in-laws all the time. Do they keep it kind of consistent, or do they mix things up with the meat?
Meat has changed over the years. They've got, like I said, they've gone away from turkey in recent years, but it tends to be a choice of 2 or 3, and so I'll mix things up. So it might be like beef and chicken, but I think, did they do duck one year? They might have done duck one year. I'm not sure, but
I think we've done duck. Yeah.
Generally, it's usually very very good. So compliments to my in-laws on Christmas, and I look forward to another one in a few days as this is released.
Yeah. Do you do Christmas crackers?
We don't anymore because it scares the dogs.
Okay. So
this
would
was
you
a
do
point
Christmas?
of conversation last night. Actually, it's like Christmas crackers are tradition, aren't they? You've got to, but the dogs get a bit freaked out.
Would you do Christmas crackers before or after your meal?
We've got to do it before, so you can wear the crown on your head whilst you're eating.
Oh, that's interesting. Yes, we do it afterwards. So we do it before. Sorry, we do it after the mains, but before dessert. But your point is valid because yes, wearing a hat. So
should we bring things round to more of our usual topics of the rating room? So this is one we introduced in our monthly special last time, and it's Sounds of the Rating Room. Thought we'd talk a bit more music, but since it's Christmas, let's talk Christmas songs, shall we? So, Jay, what are some of the Christmas songs on your festive playlist?
So I do like Christmas songs, Andy, but 2 things. I prefer listening to the older Christmas songs, and also I don't like listening to Christmas songs too early. So I don't know if you started to listen to Christmas songs yet or not. At the time of recording, we're recording this on the 8th. So, Andy, have you listened to any Christmas songs yet this year?
A few, yeah. It has to be December. You can't listen to any in November. That's just not right. So 1st of December is the absolute earliest.
Okay, so I've not listened to any outside of any films. So, you might have heard the song in films. I've not listened to any. But I must say, Andy, I do not like listening to... So, if you listen to... I know you listen to Spotify. If you listen to any Christmas songs on Spotify, when I'm flicking through them and it's like Kelly Clarkson, Justin Bieber, I'll be like, skip straight away. It has to be kind of like the older ones. So things like Wham, Last Christmas, John Lennon, Happy Christmas, War Is Over, Chris Rea, Driving Home for Christmas, Johnny Mathis, When a Child Is Born. Those are like my favourites. I would say they're kind of, I don't know if they're traditional, but very much 80s, aren't they?
They're
Johnny
the
Mathis
classics,
would be a bit early. Yeah, I think they're the classics.
In fact, Johnny Mathis, When a Child Is Born, I was part of the choir at school that sang When a Child Is Born in the Christmas concert one year. So
Nice. And I just want to put on this on the record here, Andy, because I know this is a very popular song, but I hate the Mariah Carey song, All I Want for Christmas Is You, because I just hate it because you hear it everywhere, and I just don't think it's a good song. But I'm sure when they do, every year they seem to always do like a top 100 Christmas songs or whatever. That is always in the top 5, if not number 1, and I just hate it. So Andy, what's your thoughts? Do you like the more traditional ones, or do you like the modern ones? What's your flavour?
Generally, I would say more the traditional ones. I think Mariah Carey's song I can put up with. The one I can't put up with is Fairy Tale of New York. Massively overrated in my view.
I like that one. I like that.
No, it's not for me. It's not for me. I know everyone raves about that. That's another one that's always like top of the people's lists of greatest Christmas songs, but no, it's overrated. But yeah, some of the others you've listed, absolute bangers. I like Merry Christmas Everyone by Shakin' Stevens. You've got, Mud, Lonely This Christmas. Cliff Richard. I quite like some of the Cliff Richard ones that he's released. My absolute favourite has to be Step Into Christmas by Elton John. That's a real toe tapper. But there are some, shall I say, alternative songs that I like. So the Blink-182 have done a few, like Happy Holidays You Bastard and I Won't Be Home for Christmas. So they're nice alternatives. Or Corey Taylor has done a Christmas song in recent years as well. And one that I think it was released like 15 years ago, but I only heard it for the first time last year. And it was The Hives and Cyndi Lauper did a song called Christmas Jewel, which is not very festive actually. It's singing about pretty shitty Christmases in terms of what they get up to. But a good song nonetheless.
I like Cyndi Lauper. I do struggle with Christmas songs because I just don't think new Christmas songs or stuff, modern ones, are just not up to their level.
There's very few modern ones that I would listen to. I mean, Lad Baby's been Christmas number 1 for about 18 years or whatever it is, just lately. No, it's not good. And don't get me on my high horse about his charity stuff, because he's made himself a millionaire by claiming to do charity work, so he can fuck right off.
So I've only heard of that person or couple, whoever it is, last year. So all these years that they've been famous, air quotes, and I think it was last year, and it's only because, did they do one with Martin Lewis?
I think they did, yeah.
Was that last year? And that's the only reason. I never heard of them before, but then I started Googling them, and then I was finding that, they're not necessarily nice people.
Yeah, quite local to us as well.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? Yeah, because my wife told me some stuff she saw on social media. I think they played pranks on each other or something, but I did read about charity work as well. And I don't want to get into politics. But,
no, I should be careful. We don't want to slander them, but yeah, people seem to have fallen for some of their shtick in recent years. But yeah, I'm trying to think of like the last good Christmas song. Yeah, the most recent good Christmas song that was released, and it's very difficult to think of anything beyond, say, The Darkness. Which was 15, 20 years ago now.
Yeah,
it's a while ago, isn't it? That, but I bet it's 20 years or thereabouts. But I can't think of a Christmas song that's been recorded and released since then that's any good.
Even when new bands cover old songs, I don't like.
Yeah, there's not many covers. I mean, Band-Aid 20 was released. What was that? In 2004. And they ruined that, because the original Band-Aid was a classic. Band-Aid 2 was alright, the poppy version from 89, that was fine. But the Band-Aid 20, just ruined it.
I remember not liking it. I couldn't tell you who was in the 21, but I remember I liked the original one. But I couldn't tell you who was in it. Do you remember in the 20?
I don't remember all, but they had some parts that were rapping that were unnecessary. Bono recreated his line that he did in the original Band-Aid and messed up his own line, so made it sound terrible. I think Coldplay may have been part of it as well. I can't think of the others, but yeah, it wasn't good. Some things are just best left alone.
So, Andy, I've just Googled it, a bit of live Googling. So, I can see people like Daniel Bedingfield, Natasha Bedingfield, Bono, like you said, Busted, Kat Deely, which I didn't think she was a singer, but apparently she did it. Like you said, Coldplay, Dido, Dizzy Rascal, Miss Dynamite, Estelle, and then, you mentioned The Darkness, Justin Hawkins was in it as well. Jamelia, a couple of people from the band Keen, someone from All Saints, someone from Snow Patrol. Then you got Rachel Stevens, which was that S Club 7?
S Club 7, yeah.
Sugar Babes, Robbie Williams, Will Young, and some other people that I don't, recognise their names, but quite a few.
Yeah, all that quote-unquote talent. And that's what they released.
Indeed. So, moving on, I've slightly hijacked this next section. So Andy introduced this new segment in our very first monthly special, Sequels and Serial Killers, and it's a stolen question. So last time Andy posed a question to me, but we flipped it for this Christmas special. So I'm going to pose this stolen question to Andy. And because we're doing a Christmas special this month, it's going to be Christmas themed. And I kind of mentioned this actually earlier on. So Christmas themed question, Andy. What advice do you give? So how do you get to sleep fast on Christmas Eve? So any kids out there that want to kind of get their presents a bit quicker, what kind of tips do you have?
It's one of those things, isn't it? As kids, you want to go to sleep because you don't want Santa to see you awake, because I don't know if it's the same as you, but you get told that if Santa sees you awake, he's not going to leave you any presents. But you try and force yourself to go to sleep and you can't get to sleep. Still happens as an adult, I find, as well. If you've got something exciting the next morning and you find it difficult to get to sleep. So my advice to the kids out there, if you're listening, obviously make sure you kiss your parents good night and brush your teeth before you go to bed. But then drink lots of alcohol. That'll do it. If you know where your mum and dad keep their whiskey or their vodka or anything, it might be hidden up high, so you might have to climb on something to get up to the cupboard, or you may have to pick the lock. But get yourself a good half a bottle of whatever spirits are in there. That'll knock you out for sure.
That is sound advice, Andy.
Should we put a disclaimer in here that I said that for entertainment purposes only, and we do not condone children drinking alcohol?
I think, yeah, I agree with everything you said, minus the alcohol bit. I suppose, do you have trouble getting to sleep? And because being an adult, I'm middle-aged now, I go to sleep quite quick because I'm so tired. So if I've got something happening the next day, like Christmas Day, I do look forward to a little bit, but it's more like on my son's behalf. But he, like I said, he doesn't really get it, so it's not as big a deal. But it's more, because there's something coming the next day. So in the past where I've had like maybe a job interview, or if it's my first day at work, or if there's something happening the next day, something big, a big meeting or big presentation or whatever, maybe it's a worry thing rather than anything else. I just worry about it, or it gets so amped up that I end up not sleeping well the night before. So I guess it's a similar idea, I guess, but for different reasons. I don't sleep well, so I'm a very light sleeper, Andy, and because of my age, I have to get up numerous times to go to the toilet. So I don't sleep well, but I don't necessarily have problems to get to sleep fast. It's just I'm a light sleeper. And talking about sleep, I'm going to tell you a little story about my mum, what she used to do as a kid. And this isn't about sleeping fast, but this is something she told me as a child. So I'm not condoning this. So when my mum was younger, I don't know if they had alarm clocks or not, but what she recommended, so what she told me was, if you hit your head the number of times you want to wake up, that is what time you wake up. So I remember being a teenager, my mum was basically recommending that I hit my head. So I wake up at, say, 6 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock in the morning. That was the advice that she gave me. So, yes, that is something that just kind of came to me, Andy, when we're talking about going to sleep.
I feel like we should put another medical disclaimer on that as well, that we're not endorsing self-inflicted head injuries either.
Yeah, and I think it's easier for kids now because, I don't know, like in your situation, Andy, but like we have Alexa devices in the bedrooms, so you can just put on any kind of background music, any kind of soothing sounds, rainforest, space tunes, or music, or whatever, or like, you know, an audio book. Whereas when I was a kid, it was pretty much light off, that was it.
I like to watch or listen to something before I go to sleep. Well, I think I mentioned in a previous episode that
You did, yeah, mention about watching TV. And
Phoenix
like,
Nights used to be the thing I'd fall asleep to. These days, I'll put a podcast on and just like have one earphone in, and then find myself waking up in the night because I've fallen asleep and it's like tangled around my neck or something. So,
that could be your wife just, you know, strategically placing it.
Could be,
you know.
Yeah, could be. I need to check the insurance papers actually, just see what the deal of that is. Yeah, but yeah, just lately it'll be like Netflix specials or comedy specials. Ones I've seen before, so I don't need to like pay attention as such. But just like it's weird because there'll be ones I enjoy and I find amusing, but it's kind of like a comfort thing, and I just fall asleep to people telling me jokes.
Yeah, it's because we don't have a TV in the bedroom, so we're not in the same situation. But so if we're podcasting or, you know, I'm on the computer at night, I struggle to go to sleep because, you know, your brain is like working, so I have to kind of have that period of kind of I don't know if you say detox, but you know, that transition of turning off that electrical device or the TV before, like, so I might put on some music instead or something to kind of like, you know, otherwise my, like, if I'm working late or doing something, your mind's just working.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Ideas start coming to your head and it's like you can't act on them. Yeah, but yeah, there we go. That's my official advice. Alcohol for kids is the way forward.
Yeah, I just had to think. I remember going through a period, I think they were called calms. So I used to have trouble sleeping with it before kids, and it's like this little thing that you take at night that you can just get over the counter. I think it's called calms.
It rings a bell.
As opposed to, because I reckon lavender's good as well to help you sleep.
We had that for my son when he was a baby, like the plug-in things. Plug them in and it like the scent of the room is apparently supposed to relax you.
I find my Hypno works as well, so that's a good one.
There we go.
That's another disclaimer that we need to put on.
Just a joke. Don't cancel us. We're just having a little bit of fun.
Yes, let's swiftly move on.
Let's move on. Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, Jay, you were missing from the podcast for reasons unknown. I think you're just taking a night off now. I think you were poorly.
I was looking after puppies.
Looking after puppies. Oh,
and yes, and I've poorly. Yeah.
So I went solo and I did the first ever watch along, which if you've not listened to it, check it out. It's in the archives, in the usual places. But I did the watch along of what was at the time of release quite a big TV special in America. It was Buddy's Musical Christmas, the follow up to Elf, and it got me thinking about Christmas TV, because that's a bit of a staple of Christmas, certainly for us growing up and even to this day. So, Jay, what would you say are some of the best TV shows you've watched over the Christmas period in years past?
I remember definitely watching Doctor Who Christmas specials, because some TV shows build up to a Christmas special. Others might just have an episode that runs, say, for 20 episodes, and then you have a one Christmas themed one. Or otherwise, some might focus, you know, doing a Christmas special like Doctor Who. I do enjoy the Christmas episodes for The Office. That's the US version and the UK version. Also growing up though, so Andy, again, I don't know these kind of before your time. I remember watching Christmas specials, so like Birds of a Feather, The Detectives. The Detectives had a couple of Christmas specials as well. One Foot in the Grave. And those are the kind of ones where, as a family, I remember sitting in the living room and watching it together. Last year, though, I remember having, I think, either a week or 2 weeks off at Christmas, because I strategically picked my days off to, you know, with the bank holiday. So I had a nice chunk off last year. And I discovered the BBC sitcom Ghost. So I never come across it before. And I was on BBC iPlayer, I think I was watching Match of the Day and I came across Ghost. And I just binge watched all the seasons. I was getting up early. I was getting up at, say, 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I was watching a couple of episodes before the wife and kids got up. So I really enjoyed Ghost. And then when I finished Ghost, I discovered that the Americans had remade the show. So they had season 1 on BBC iPlayer as well. So I watched the full season of season 1 of The Ghost. So I really, really enjoyed that. What about you, Andy? Is there any kind of programs that kind of stand out or that you watch each year?
Yeah, a few come to mind. So you mentioned like The Office, absolute classics. Love those. One Foot in the Grave, I remember a couple of those as well. Father Ted, did you ever watch that?
I don't like Father Ted.
Not at all. I loved Father Ted. The Christmas special where all the priests get stuck in the lingerie department is quite amusing. In recent years, things like the Strictly Christmas special we've watched. We're big Strictly fans in our house. Big Fat Quiz of the Year, which is usually sort of in between Christmas and New Year, with Jimmy Carr and panel of comedians. That's good. Good
that Channel 4 one?
Channel 4. Yeah, usually for like a couple of hours. And then they've done off spins as well. They've done like Big Fat Quiz of Sport or Big Fat Quiz of Everything. Same kind of idea. Jimmy Carr hosts, a few teams of celebrities piss about and answer questions, and yeah, it's just nice. A nice thing. Gavin and Stacey, it was pretty big, again, maybe 10, 15 years ago, but probably my absolute favourite. And again, this, if memory serves me correctly, the first one, well, the one that comes to mind, I think, was 96, so I'd have been 12 at the time, was Only Fools and Horses. Absolute classic sitcom. Love Only Fools and Horses. And the Christmas special where Del and Rodney dress up as Batman and Robin it's still an absolute classic to this day, and one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
I definitely agree with you. The Only Fools and Horses ones, and that one you said, Batman and Robin, is a standout one. They are, because I remember some other ones, but I can't remember they were Christmas specials though. Like, you know, the one that did like Miami Vice kind of one as well. But I can't remember if that was a Christmas special or just a special. I thought that one. And then they did the ones, you know, where they became rich, but then they did like another one where they lost the money. And wasn't there one that was kind of like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, but it wasn't kind of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Oh, it was as well. Yeah, was it like Jonathan Ross?
Yeah, was it called something like the Gold Rush? They were on or something. But yeah, it was in a way. It's a shame they went that way, because once they became millionaires, that's like the perfect ending.
Yeah,
it's almost like they should have left it. Yeah.
Yeah,
so that's a common theme on this podcast when we talk about sequels and franchises and such. It's like sometimes you just need to leave well enough alone. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. I follow a Only Fools and Horses account on Instagram, and they just post like various funny clips. And one that came up the other day was from the Batman and Robin Christmas episode, because they're trying to get to a fancy dress party. Only it's not a fancy dress party anymore because the guy who's hosting it had died, hadn't he? So it's his wake from his funeral. So Batman and Robin turn up and everyone's wearing black suits and black dresses. I
think Boise didn't pass on the message, did he, or something? Or he let them walk in. Do you remember when he answers the door and he lets them walk in?
But the thing that really made me laugh was Trigger, when he came up to them and said, I feel a bit foolish because I've come dressed as a chauffeur.
Good old Trigger.
Yeah.
Dave. Only Fools and Horses is like one of those, you know, when you kind of watch it as a family. I think my dad might have the box set of the Only Fools and Horses.
My dad's obsessed with it. Whenever he comes round, or probably the same at home as well, because it's on, is it UK TV Gold or whatever the channel's called these days?
Yeah, it's always those ones, yeah.
It's always on, so he's always watching it. Still just as funny today as they ever were.
Gavin and Stacey is one of those TV programs that when it first came out, I never watched them, and it was only years later that I came across. I obviously heard about it, but I thought, you know, everyone's talking about how good they are, and then I just binge watched them. Also, it is a good program. I do enjoy it. James Corden's a bit like Marmite, isn't he? Really,
modern day James Corden. Yeah, I'm not a fan at all because he's turned into a right knob, hasn't he? But yeah, I was the same. I never watched them as they happened, but got into them. Again, it's one of those where you watch the Christmas special, I think that's fine. But if you don't watch the actual series, it's fine. You don't really need to follow it as such. But yeah, they were pretty good. There's a few TV shows like that people rave about, and they're just like, oh, you've got to watch this, and then they never live up to the hype, do they?
The program that I can never, well, there's two that jump to mind, and I can't quite don't think I can get the name right for the second one, is Little Britain. I could never get that. And sorry, there's three: Little Britain, Fast Show, and then there's one that is it something like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen or League of Gentlemen or something. Those three comedy programs, I just never got the sense of humour.
I quite liked all of those. Yeah, League of Gentlemen is a very strange show, but it had its moments. Fast Show I liked. I think I preferred Harry Enfield and Chums, which was a lot of the same people, but for some reason I think the sketches in Harry Enfield and Chums just worked a bit better. No, for me, the one that everyone raves about, and I just don't get it, is Schitt's Creek.
Yes, I agree. We watched 2 episodes, and that's it. I
watched an episode. There was nothing funny about it. It's won so many awards for being hilarious. I was like, I don't get it. I'm like, what am I missing? Like, other than humour. It's like, but then people say, oh no, you've got to stick with it. Go watch it. Like, no, I don't have to stick with it. You've got to hook me in from the start. Otherwise, I'm not going to spend any more time watching it. But yeah, we digress slightly. Let's get things back on track. Now, we can't be on Narrator and Podcast without talking about films, can we? So let's talk about let's talk about some Christmas films, shall we? Since that's what we're here for. So over the last few weeks, we've watched Elf and we've watched Die Hard, and I've watched a TV special of Elf as well. But there's far more Christmas films out there than that. What in your opinion, Jay, makes a good Christmas film?
So for me, Andy, my favourite type of Christmas film is the romantic type. So I am a bit soppy, and my wife says I like cheesy Christmas films. So I do like the heartwarming storylines as well. And obviously you gotta have a festive setting. So a lot of the Christmas films I like is the ones that are like in a little town or a city where you've got lots of snow, it's winter. So I do think you need that festive setting. And the humour, it doesn't have to be a laugh out loud film, but little bits of humour I do think help. And I think this is probably the most important point, is there's usually kind of a sprinkle of redemption and second chances. So they use the festive period for like personal growth and positive change. And I don't know if I'm not saying this is necessarily what makes a good film, but I don't know if you find it, is a lot of the Christmas films I find is it usually involves a widow and a child. And it's usually that person finding love with someone else. But I do quite like that kind of theme, which is obviously nothing like Elf that we've watched and Die Hard. But they're the kind of Christmas films I think I enjoy, but also what I do think makes a Christmas film. What about you, Andy? What kind of ingredients would you sprinkle into your ideal Christmas film?
I mean, I tend to agree with a lot of what you've already said. I think when it comes to Christmas films, that's where I'm more, with an exception, an obvious exception. I like them to be family friendly, and it's got to have a happy ending. It's got to feel good, hasn't it? I mean, we talked about Elf a few weeks ago, and that's just a nice, happy, fun film. There's nothing egregious. There's nothing derogatory. It's just a nice film, and like you said, it has that kind of ebb and flow, and it gets down and then it redeems at the end, and everyone goes away with a happy ending. It's just it's good. That's what a Christmas film. Any other time of the year, let's put in as much sex and violence and horror and gore as you want. I'm fine with that, but when it comes to Christmas, you gotta keep it nice and safe and happy.
So you won't be recommending Bad Santa?
It's an alright film, but it's not going to top my Christmas list. Like as a film, yeah, that's fine. But if I'm wanting to get into the festive spirit, that's not the one I'm going to be reaching for.
So, what are your favourite Christmas films, Andy?
Well, so we've talked about Die Hard and we've talked about Elf. Die Hard is my favourite Christmas film, which kind of goes against what I've just said a second ago. So that is the outlier. Elf is definitely up there on the list. But a few others that we may have talked about in a little bit of detail, but not greatly, is Jingle All the Way. I think is just a fun action film with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad, where they're chasing Turbo Man. It's turbo time. That's that would have been a better impression of that. I'm not as hungover as I am right now. The Home Alone films, classics. Again, fun, frivolity, but nothing outrageous. One we've watched in recent years is Arthur Christmas. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's an animated film.
Seen it once.
Yeah, it's all right. It's a nice one to have on in the background. One that's is a little bit hit and miss, but I quite enjoy is The Grinch with Jim Carrey. But there's so many out there, but they're ones that tend to be on in my house repeatedly in the Christmas period. What about you? What are some of your favourites?
So I agree. So in no particular order, Andy, I do agree Die Hard and Home Alone's 1 and 2, the best Home Alones. But just to kind of, pick some other ones. Gremlins, I do enjoy, and that kind of reminds me, thinking about, growing up. I remember watching Gremlins. Scrooge, we mentioned this previously, with Bill Murray, is one of my, if not my favourite Christmas film.
That is a classic. That would be probably top 3, top 5 for me as well.
Yeah, very, very good film. Miracle on 34th Street, the remake, with Attenborough. I know we had this discussion last week where was it Richard or David?
It's Richard, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And here we have Santa Claus on his sleigh. That would be David.
But honourable mentions as well is the Muppet Christmas Carol. I do like that film. Love Actually. I do like, like I said, romantic films. I do like Love Actually. The Holiday is one that I tend to watch every year. Watched it the other night as well. And Christmas with the Cranks with Tim Allen, which is, a throwback to our Tom Hanks season as Buzz Lightyear. I do like Christmas with the Cranks. I do find that quite funny. There's a scene with Jamie Lee Curtis and a sunbed and a tanning saloon, which is very good. But this year, Andy, as at the date of recording, which I mentioned obviously earlier, 8th of December, I've already watched 15 Christmas films. And most of those films were direct-to-TV films, so films that I've never heard of. And they're really good because you load it up on your streaming platform, splash screen, name of the film, and then straight into the film. No messing about with any kind of pre-title sequences, no credit straight away. It's just straight into the film. And is with actors and actresses that I've never seen before or heard. And I just found them really cheesy, but really enjoyable. None of the things that you've said earlier in terms of kind of like your turn-offs, really family friendly. And I sent you a picture, didn't I, a few weeks ago of all the front covers on this particular streaming app.
You did, yes.
There's a consistent theme, isn't there, in terms of Christmas films? There seems to be.
Obviously, this is audio only, so I can't share the picture with our listeners unless we did something on YouTube. But yeah, I'm just reminding myself. Here it is. Yes. So you sent me the titles, and it seems to be a lot of people wearing red and green. Like couples, one with a red jumper, one with a green jumper. Oh, there's a couple, one with a red coat, one with a green coat. And we've got a red jumper and a green jumper. And
a similar pose as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
As well. A nice little setting in the background. I've shown some people at work at that as well. And then, was on that screenshot I sent you, was that the one that included Maddie?
Yes. Bottom randomly. Because I'm guessing you searched Christmas, or it's in the Christmas category. But yeah, bottom left of that screenshot, Madeleine McCann, the case against Christian B. Yeah. Merry Christmas.
Yeah. that was a very random one. But I do like Christmas films, and I'm planning to watch more. But there are some really good ones that I've not listed that I will watch each year as well. And I just like them. They're just easy watches, very cheesy as well. But any of the ones I mentioned, Andy, that you've not seen?
I've not seen Christmas with the Cranks, I don't think.
Oh, you have to watch that. That's funny.
Yeah. I've seen...
It's got Jamie Lee Curtis.
Yeah, I've seen it advertised, but never actually watched it. But the others, Muppet Christmas Carol, brilliant. Love that. Love Actually. Yeah, that's another good one. It gets a lot of talk each year, doesn't it? Particularly the Alan Rickman character.
Yes.
And what a dirty bastard he is. Gets talked about quite a lot.
Which storyline in Love Actually is your favourite?
The two porn stars.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's just so awkward. It's so awkward. The whole Keira Knightley thing.
That's weird. Yeah, I think that's a weird one.
There's rules about that sort of thing, bro code.
I do think, there are some weird storylines, like I said, Adam Rickman. My favourite is the Colin Firth, where he goes to France, isn't it, to write his novel. And I think she's Portuguese, I think it is, or Spanish. That's my favourite one. And then I do like the Hugh Grant one as well. Yeah,
it's a good film. Very, very, very cleverly done.
Yeah. What about Gremlins? You must have seen that.
I've not seen it for a long time, but I've seen it a few times growing up. Yeah, another. See, it's obviously a Christmas film, but I wouldn't necessarily see it as a Christmas film or to think of it as a Christmas film when I'm like compiling a list. Just like some people would argue Die Hard is not a Christmas film, and they'd be wrong. But I would never say Gremlins is not a Christmas film. It's not forefront of my mind.
Yeah. No, I agree. And Home Alone 1 and 2 are definitely the better films.
Have you seen the others?
Yeah, we've seen them all.
Because obviously it's not Culkin, is it? Is in the
no
3 onwards.
No, there isn't, and one of them isn't too bad. The one with the little boy where he's poorly and he has to stay at home. The last one that they did, which from memory has the actor who played Bud in the first one, but he's obviously an adult. He's in it, is shockingly bad. We actually ended up turning it off as well, because when it first came out, I think it came out on Disney Plus, we watched it and it was just like, oh, this is so bad, this one. But yeah, they're my favourite films, Andy, Christmas films.
So there you go. We've got a few recommendations there to get you into the holiday spirit. I'll just alert listeners to what's coming up over the next few weeks, and then we'll get into maybe the main portion of our show this week. So for listeners out there, by the time this drops, it'll be a few days before Christmas Day. Obviously, I hope you enjoy the festive period in between Christmas and New Year. We are finally going to release the before promised interview with Toby, in which he talks to us about all things Tom Hanks. So that will be released between Christmas and New Year. Then as we get into January, we've got a few new episodes coming up for films. Some films I've not actually seen myself, so this will be new territory for me, because I think so far, other than the TV special of Elf Buddy's Musical Christmas, we've done all films that I've seen previously, but there's going to be some coming up that I've not, and the first one of those, as we get into 2024, is the film Interstellar. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that for the very first time and sharing my thoughts with you. The Usual Suspects, an absolute classic of a film. Looking forward to reviewing that with you, Jay, because it's been a few years since I've seen that one, so is it still the classic I remember it being? I guess we'll find out. The Hangover is another film we're going to attempt to review. And our next monthly special, we're thinking something along the lines of remakes. We did sequels last month. Obviously, this month is Christmas. Next month, we're thinking something to do with remakes. So listen out to that in the coming weeks and months. But shall we get on to season 2 of Dexter?
The Reading Room.
Right, Jay, let's leave Christmas behind just for a little while and get on to our other main topic, and that is Season 2 of Dexter. Now, last month in our first monthly special, we went through all things Season 1, and we ended with Dexter and Deb celebrating at a parade-like event that was actually just a figment of Dexter's imagination. And we also had Rita kind of had her first suspicions that maybe Dexter's not exactly who he claimed to be. So it kind of set the tone for what was to come. But what was your feeling at the end of Season 1, and what were your expectations going into Season 2?
So the thing I liked about how Season 1 ended was the kind of the reveal around Rita and Paul's missing shoe. Because at that point in time, if I recall correctly, there was no doubt in Rita's mind about Dexter, and this is kind of the first seeds of doubt that kind of came in. And I like how it then kind of ended, so that's like you don't see Rita anymore until Season 2. I wasn't overly keen about the kind of like the parade Dexter got, because does that kind of symbolise that he wants to be a hero? You know, he seems to be very content to kind of fly under the radar in Season 1 and not to bring any attention to himself, but he seems to enjoy that he's taken down the ice truck killer and he's getting all this attention.
Yeah, it's almost like he wants his ego feeding, doesn't it? Which, does that go against what Dexter stands for? Maybe, maybe not, I don't know. But an interesting idea nonetheless. I thought it was a good ending. Certainly let you know that it wasn't the end of the story. More was to come, without really explaining what. But what is what we're going to talk about next, isn't it? Because Season 2 was released a year later. We'll just give the listeners a bit of a summary of what Season 2 entails, and then we'll go a little bit episode by episode, shall we? So, in Season 2 of Dexter, Dexter Morgan continues to live his double life as a blood spatter analyst for the Miami Metro PD and the vigilante serial killer we know and love, targeting other criminals who have escaped justice.
And Dexter's grappling with his dark urges. The season unfolds, and there's an increased tension and this complexity as well with Sergeant James Dokes, which, you know, if we recall from Season 1, one of Andy's favourite characters. And Dokes is becoming suspicious of Dexter's activities as well.
He is, and not only that, Dexter's personal life takes a bit of a turn this series as his relationship with girlfriend Rita is tested.
And we also had the introduction of Sergeant Frank Lundy, who's going to be an important player in this season. And he's being brought in to investigate a new series of gruesome murders known as the Bay Harbor Butcher.
Yeah, and of course Dexter has got to skillfully navigate the precarious balance between his facade as a normal human being and his deadly compulsion, all while facing unexpected challenges that threaten to expose his true nature. That feels like a good way to tease what we're about to talk about. So let's get into episode 1, shall we? Where did this all begin for Dexter in Series 2?
So, for me, Andy, I really like this intro sequence because, if you recall, in Season 1, he's driving down, whatever you call it, Miami, I don't know, like the seafront. And this was very similar. You know, it was so similar to the opening of episode 1 in Season 1 that I actually stopped and made sure I didn't load up the episode 1 of Season 1, because I've done that before. So I did like that car intro sequence.
Yeah, it was a nice callback, wasn't it? Just to kind of almost reset, you know, that we're starting again with a new story for Dexter. I thought it was really well done, wasn't it?
When you see the next bit, he's continuing working on the bowling team. You could say it's working because it's his kind of disguise of being a regular guy. I don't think he necessarily likes bowling, because there's a comment later on in the season that he mentions, oh, it looks like I've got to go bowling again. So I don't know if he necessarily really enjoys it. I don't know if it's something different in the books, Andy, that he does enjoy it, but that's the feeling I get, that it's just kind of part of his cover story that he's doing. And he makes a mention, doesn't he, how many days since he killed his brother? Yeah,
38 days since he killed his brother. It's almost like he's an addict going cold turkey.
Indeed, yeah. So it's interesting that he's gone 38 days, though, I found as well.
It doesn't feel like a long time, though, does it? I was trying to do some quick maths when I looked at his slide box, because we guessed, what did we guess? About 35 slides were in his box when we last saw it. So if he's already having these urges and it's only been 38 days, and then, you know, how often does he need to kill to satisfy that need? Is it, you know, 1 a month, 2 a month? Because even if it's 1 a month, that's only, you know, he's got 3 years worth of kills, and he's a fully grown man at this point. So I'm not sure that adds up.
Yeah, and obviously we're tracking kill count, so make sure you stay until the end when we go through those. But Andy, I apologies if this is covered, but I don't recall if it ever explains that the blood splatter case is necessarily his first one. I'm making the assumption that he potentially just fills them up and then puts them to one side maybe. I don't necessarily think that might be the first one, unless it is and I've missed it.
I don't know. That's a good point. I've kind of made the assumption that all his kills are in that one box, because otherwise where would the others be? Or has he got a bunch of kills where he didn't take the slides? And again, I don't think that's necessarily the case.
Yeah, because I don't know when he first started kind of collecting trophies. Because, you know, in season 1 where you see him kill the nurse who's responsible for trying to kill Harry a bit faster, I don't recall him taking any kind of samples. And maybe he only started doing samples when he moved into that field professionally.
Maybe, yeah. A lot of unanswered questions there, but I'm sure some of them may come to pass as the series progresses. But what were some of your other notes and thoughts on episode 1?
I mean, one of the things that I think it tidies up quite quickly is that Batista, his wife has left him, because obviously in season 1 they're separated, but then at the end of season 1, you know, after he's attacked, you think maybe there's going to be some reconciliation, but it's settled quite quickly and revealed in episode 1 that's not the case. She has left him.
Yeah, they did look to be.
So he's on the market.
Yeah,
again.
there did look to be some sort of false hope, didn't they, in series 1 for Batista, or he was certainly clinging to some hope, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Andy, another point, kind of leading on to where you asked about how season 1 ended. So we find out Dokes is still following Dexter, and if I recall, is that part of how season 1 was ending, where he kind of looked? That's when he kind of realised that Dokes. I'm just thinking that last bit. He kind of, you know, when he looks down the road, is it when he leaves Rita's house or not? I can't remember. And that's when he kind of clocks that Dokes is still like there, he's done the ice track killer, but he's still got that kind of Dokes situation to resolve. He's still got those suspicions, and that really explains the 38 days, doesn't it? It's not that he's
satisfied his urges, it's that he just doesn't get the chance to kill because his Dokes is on his tail the whole time. And 38 days, Dokes is relentless, because we're seeing throughout season 2, he's not going away, is he? Or not going away easily. That doesn't seem to be the case, but he does. Dexter does get another victim in mind, doesn't he? Finally gets some free time. I'm trying to think how he got away from Dokes to try and enable this first kill of the series, or potential kill of the series. I don't know if I'm getting confused, Andy, but I remember, I don't know if it's this episode or another episode, where he sees Dokes in the car park and he's walking into the bowling bit and says, "Oh, I'm just going to get some practice. You can come in and watch me if you want." And I think Dokes kind of just looks and thinks, "Oh, I'll just go," because Dexter walks in. But I can't remember if it's this episode or if it's a different episode. I think it might be this one. I'm also thinking, did he slash his tyres at some point? But I think that might be a later episode. I think that might be.
Yes, that was later, yeah.
So I think this was just Dokes is bored and gives him the night off.
Yes, definitely. Now, I a little observation, Andy. I don't want to get a bit pervy, but one of the things I find fascinating is Rita's kind of how she involves throughout the seasons in Dexter, because she's looking really smoking hot in this opening episode in season 2. Very different to how we see her in season 1.
Yeah, she was very mild-mannered and polite and kind of prim and proper almost, wasn't she, in series 1? But yeah, The heat in Miami has certainly been turned up as a result of Rita's appearance here.
Yeah, and so Andy, who's next victim for Dexter?
Well, we've got the blind voodoo priest is here, or kind of high priest, was the attempt that Dexter had, but he's off his game, isn't he? He just can't kill him.
No, and it's probably the first time we've seen Dexter like this, isn't it?
Performance anxiety, I believe it's called.
Yeah. Yes, we've all been there. I understand, but he's not. So in this episode, Andy, it's not for the want of trying, is it? Because you got your blind voodoo guy, and then you've got a giant to the man is my note, but you recalled his proper name. My comment was a giant was my note.
He is a giant. His name is Little Chino, and he's not so little, is he? But he also can't go through with this kill as well, can he?
He can't. And Andy, I've got a little fact about Little Chino, which I haven't shared with you. So this is I'm going to reveal it to you now. So Little Chino is played by an actor called Matt Willig. Now he's an American football player, so that bit's not really interesting. However, he also played Andre the Giant in a TV show, Young Rock. Did you know that? See how I brought wrestling into you?
See what you did there. I did not know that. That's fascinating. I've not seen Young Rock.
I'm assuming it's about The Rock, the Young Rock, because I've not seen it either.
I've heard many things about it. I've heard how entertaining it is, and also how factually inaccurate it is as well.
All right. Does The Rock appear in the Young Rock?
I believe he may narrate, and I also think there are like flash forward scenes of where he is an older version of himself in the future, and he's running for president or something.
That wouldn't surprise me, you know.
Yeah, I've not seen it, but I've heard mixed reviews about it.
Okay, yeah, I thought that little wrestling nugget you'd enjoy. Now, we also Rita also finds out that Paul dies in prison. Well, you find out actually he's murdered, but yeah. So Paul is out of the picture because, again, that's a kind of thing in season 1. He gets put away again, and you think maybe in season 2 is he going to be a bit of a problem for Dexter? But that's been kind of sorted out in episode 1, nice and tidy. Dexter doesn't have to worry about him anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Not proposes. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't know. I'll think of a different sentence. It creates. There we go. That's a better word. It creates a different dynamic, doesn't it? Because Paul was a thorn in Dexter's side towards the latter part of season 1. Then obviously he went to prison, and did Dexter have something to do with it? We know he does, but Rita at this point is not sure, and now he's dead, so it's making Rita very conflicted, but it certainly helps Dexter out. It's one less problem for him to solve.
And how does this episode end, Andy? Do you recall?
Well, things are kind of hunky-dory, aren't they, at the moment, apart from Dexter's performance anxiety, because I made a note that he can't do the killing, but he also struggles in the bedroom as well at some point, because he's completely off his game. And things are not going to be helped by the fact that there is this new killer has emerged, because there's at least 30 bags containing body parts that are found. And this is a big news case. But of course we know, and Dexter knows, who put those parts in the bags in the first place. So it's a very good way to end episode 1, because now Dexter is going to be hunting Dexter. Indeed.
And just to provide a summary, there are no kills in the kill count for this episode, so a slow start for Dexter in episode 1. Now, episode 2 is called Waiting to Exhale. So, Andy, do you want to kick things off?
Yeah, so on the back of that, Dexter's still off his game. I think there's mentioned the fact that he's feeling guilt. So he's kind of got this human emotion, which he's struggling to comprehend, isn't he?
He is, yeah, definitely. And it's been not a great start for season 2 for Dexter. Hopefully he's going to turn it around. In this episode as well, we see the new lieutenant, who I can't remember her name. Is it Esme?
Esme, that sounds about right, doesn't it?
Yeah, she's struggling to juggle her kind of personal life and work as well.
Yeah, so of course she took over from the Guerta, who was demoted after her bumbled handling of the ice truck killer case. Now, these notes may not be any sort of order, so feel free to jump in at any point. But one thing I noted quite early doors was that Dexter was giving some advice, quote unquote, to Rita on how to deal with the Paul situation. She wasn't happy about that. Felt like he was interfering, it seemed.
Yeah, nothing's going right for Dexter. Yeah, because it was about the funeral and the cost, wasn't it, as well? So nothing's going right for Dexter. I'm starting to feel sorry for him already in this season.
Yeah, I think he was just kind of like, well, he's dead, who cares sort of attitude, wasn't he? Because, he's a junkie and a loser. But Rita was like, no, hang on, this is the father of my children. He needs a proper send-off. So I think that created a little bit of conflict in Dexter's personal life. But in his professional life, we now have this case of the Bay Harbor Butcher. Miami PD are not going to be able to handle this on their own, though. They've brought in some outside help.
They've brought in Frank Lundy, who's a super agent in tracking serial killers, if I recall. And he doesn't come alone, Andy.
He's got quite the entourage. I think, is it Masuka? Like, mentions that he's kind of an FBI rock star, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, he is. And we're going to see him throughout season 2 and maybe in future seasons.
Let's watch this space, yeah. Now, little Chino is still on the prowl. Dexter needs to close that loophole, doesn't he?
He does, but Andy, I don't know what you thought about this, because you see Dexter trying to take down little Chino, but he just messes this up again, because you notice, well, you don't notice because they are well hidden, but Dexter doesn't realise that actually there's some henchmen waiting for him.
Yeah, he's this is where things start to get quite stressful as a viewer, because you're thinking he's gonna come a cropper here, isn't he? I made a note here on a particular scene where I think Dexter goes to, like, there's a house party or something happening in I don't know if it's at Chino's house or Chino is there with his brethren. And Dexter has to hide. He has to get away. And you just see him down the sewers. And the note I made because of the visual was, is this Dexter or is this Pennywise?
I found that really funny, Andy, because I had the same thought about Pennywise, but also my mind jumped to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, because they love a good sewer as well. And we do have Paul's funeral as well at some point, so we do have that. Yes,
Dexter is there to support Rita and the kids. I think I've not made this note, but if memory serves correctly, doesn't she kind of confront him at the funeral or not long after the funeral, basically saying, what was your involvement?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yes, you're right, because that's where he tells Rita he has an addiction.
Yes, of course. So this is kind of how we've probably jumped ahead. I think this is how the episode ends, isn't it? Where she confronts him with, like, how did you know how much heroin to overdose him with, and blah blah blah. And I don't know if he's thinking on his feet or whether he's just agreeing to it because Rita puts the suggestion. Because I think she just asks him outright, doesn't she? Are you an addict? And he's like, yeah, I'm an addict, rather than telling
he
him
doesn't
the truth.
actually say and he doesn't lie per se, does he? Because you don't say he's a drug addict or anything. He just says, I'm an addict. So you said we jumped ahead, Andy. What have we missed?
Well, I wanted to just touch on Deb, not like that. But obviously, if we remember back to series 1, obviously she was engaged to the ice truck killer, so she's going through a rough time of things. She chases down a kid at one point and makes him piss his pants because she goes a bit too rough with him. But there was a very funny quote at some point where she arrives in the office, trips over someone's bag, and I believe she says something like, which fucking asshole left this bag there? And it turns out it was Lundy, and he turns to her and says, it's Special Agent fucking asshole.
Yeah, because that's the bit where then he takes his bag and opens it up, and he's like, I don't know, his drink or soup has leaked.
Yeah.
In his suit. Yeah.
But yeah, way to make a
That
good
is.
first impression, Deb.
And eventually, though, Dexter does get little Chino. So he does get his man in the end.
He is back in the game. So yeah, one kill for this episode, if for those counting along at home. But the story is advancing at quite a pace by the time episode 2 ends. Moving on to episode 3, which is An Inconvenient Lie, is the title. My first note, if I may jump in at this point, my first note is Rita has turned into a bit of a nag, hasn't she?
Yeah, so I made a comment that she's really hot in an early episode, and now she is nagging Dexter, and that kind of forces Dexter to attend the addiction group as well, and he doesn't stay until the end, though.
No, he doesn't, because Rita remarks, where's your chip? Doesn't he? That's the telltale sign.
Yeah, and you would have thought Dexter... You would have thought he would have done a bit of research about that. I mean, I've never been to any kind of addiction group, and I kind of know. But I don't know if that's an American thing. I wonder if they have that in this country. Maybe one of us needs to attend an addiction group.
Well, I was going to go to the premature ejaculation group, but it turns out it's tomorrow.
But we do see that Lundy is picking his special investigation team, and we find out Deb is on the team, and Masuka makes it on, and not Dexter.
Yes, that's interesting. But I think I'm trying to think back. Did Dexter want in on the team because then I guess he could control things from the inside, or is it not really mentioned? I think there's a bit of concern, isn't there, that because he's not part of the task force, that he's not going to be able to know what's going on. So how close are they going to be to him?
But Masuka isn't very discreet about Finn, so Dexter throughout this season will find out things that Masuka has quite openly tells him as well. And I don't know if I'm jumping ahead here, Andy, but I mentioned Dexter attends the addiction group, but he does attend the group again, and this time he does get the chip, and he does go for a coffee with a new friend. And she starts talking about the Dark Passenger. So who's this new friend, Andy?
This new friend we find out is Lila. We don't know much about her at this stage.
Just that she's English.
She is clearly English by her accent. A bit of a mystery character at this point, but something tells me she's going to play a bigger part in this season. But we shall see how that goes along. Touching on some other characters that we're following, so Deb still struggling. Lundy gives her a bit of a pep talk because I think she's a bit surprised that she's on the team. At this stage, and again, maybe I'm jumping ahead because it's been a little while since I watched these back. Is she already having second thoughts at this stage about whether she wants to be on the team or needs to be on the team? And I think that's why Lundy's kind of trying to gear up a little bit, isn't he?
Yeah, you're right. I don't know if she she actually does explicitly ask to be taken off from memory, and like you said, he manages to convince her not to. But also, an interesting point, Andy, Dexter has his next target. So we've had a couple of episodes where things don't go quite well, but then in the last episode, it does. He manages to get, his kill, and he's got his eyes set on a used car salesman.
He has a used car salesman who seems to take advantage of young women and their credit status for his own personal gains. I thought this was quite an interesting first interaction, that he went on almost like a fact-finding mission, didn't he, to see just how bad this guy is and maybe get close to him, and he ended up buying a new car.
That's what I was going to say. The thing I found about funny was that he ends up buying a new car, which is like a people carrier, and then he keeps it for pretty much all season.
Yeah,
as well.
It turns out to be pretty useful in the end, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
One other note I've made, again, maybe jumping a little bit out of order, but I've said the note I've written is Maria had an open goal, but she didn't take it. Now this is because the new lieutenant seems to be struggling, doesn't she, balancing professional and personal life. She's got suspicions that her fiance or boyfriend is cheating on her, and he keeps giving her a lot of grief. And the captain's noticed, and the captain, I think, comes to Maria and basically says, how's she doing? And I think he's looking for her to kind of throw her under the bus a little bit, but she doesn't. She's like, no, she's going all right. So maybe she's got her back after all.
Maybe she's being a team player and not being selfish. But I think jumping back, Andy, to the addiction group, this is where Dokes finds him at the group. So now, Dokes, is he going to be happy that Dexter's kind of got this addiction? Because he does say something like, I knew there was something about you, he then says something about there's other people in the force that have drink or drug issues. So Dexter, I think he even smiles at that point when he realizes what's happened.
Yeah, at this point, without giving too much in the way of spoilers, at this point it seems like the Dexter versus Dokes rivalry is called off. Dokes finds Dexter as a weirdo, and something off about him. He follows him to the group and finds him there, and it almost like I've not written down quotes or anything, but it's almost like he's saying to Dexter, that explains why you're such a weirdo, because you're an addict. Just stay out of my way, sort of thing. I think he maybe even say something like, just stay clean and stay out of my way, something along those lines. So that kind of draws a line under that now. So Dokes and Dexter are now back on the same side, and all's hunky-dory, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is the one, Andy, where he does slash the tyre of Dokes's, because Doke then makes a comment about covering the cost of his new tyre.
Yes, indeed. But he'll pay for the tyre, and they'll live happily ever after. So thankfully, Dokes is off Dexter's back, isn't he?
Well, Dokes is off Dexter's back, but Rita is going to be back on Dexter's back, because we have this really dramatic zoom-in effect, which I thought, Andy, was over the top. I don't know what you thought. So you see Dexter talking to his new sponsor, and someone, I think is a bloke, moves out the way, and it reveals this gorgeous English dark-haired lady, and Rita isn't impressed, and then the camera just zooms in really close to Rita, and I thought, oh my gosh, what's happening there? That was a bit over the top.
Yeah, the green-eyed monster. She's jealous. That's what that is.
Yeah, but she's been pushing him. She's pretty much pushed him into another woman's arms. Now, just before we move on, we had a 1 kill. So, Dexter did get the 1 kill, and that was a used car salesman. So later on, we're going to go through and tally everything up and how many kills he got throughout. So before we do that, though, let's move on to episode 4, and it's called See Through.
Yeah, the first note I wrote for this is that Dexter's still paranoid. And I guess it's not so much of Dokes now, is it? But I guess it's the case and everything around him, because they are hunting the Bay Harbour Butcher. And we all know that is Dexter.
Yeah, there must be lots of pressure on Dexter at the moment. We've had Dokes, we've had Rita, we've got the Bay Harbour Butcher case kind of lingering on as well. So he's getting lots of external pressure, and like you said, he's had performance issues as well. So yeah, things aren't going great for Dexter.
Lila seems to be good news for him, or at least he thinks so. But you can just tell, can't you, this as a viewer, there's something not quite right about Lila. At this stage, you don't really know what, but I can just tell she's bad news.
She is, and you find out she's an artist, and you also find out Dexter goes to her apartment, and then she goes on a mission, and he's not driving, but she has to go. He has to go with Lila, and we see her stealing various metal pieces from people's houses, apartments, and then also there's a bit where she runs into this kind of metal bollard, I think you'd call it, and then they steal that as well. So Dexter is someone that likes to kind of fly under the radar, and she is the complete opposite, and this kind of behaviour isn't great for Dexter. And also just before this, we see the chief and Lundy kind of clashing a bit how to take things forward, because the chief, he really loves the public engagement, doesn't he? Getting his face out there. And in the season 1, we see him taking credit for the work that they're doing, which miffs off Maria. And the chief wants to go public with the info that we find out that the bodies are either people that have been convicted for murder or have been tried for murder as well, don't we?
Yes, there's a definite. Would you say it's a power struggle? There does seem to be a little bit of conflict between Lundy and Captain Matthews, but I think they're trying to play nicely, aren't they?
Yeah, different ways of working, isn't there? Because I suppose Lundy, he doesn't have to kind of think about the political kind of side of things. He just gets dropped in, doesn't he? Different places in America to sort out the crime. He doesn't necessarily have to worry about the public perception or thinking about long-term career within that area, where the chief, like I said, definitely relishes the public recognition.
Yeah, definitely. I'll let you take over in terms of what's happening with Dexter, but the couple of other comments that I made were from some other characters. One character, who is a real person, is my wife. She made this comment, and that this series is definitely funnier than series 1. I've not picked out any quotes from this particular episode, but there are a few throughout the series that I thought were quite amusing, including the aforementioned special agent fucking asshole, which I thought was quite amusing. And speaking of said special agent, Deb seems to be oversharing with Lundy. She's trying to get close to him and chat, and she says the quote to him that she got laid big time when talking about previous night's date.
Yes, who, if I recall, she picked up in the gym.
She did, yes.
I can't recall his name, actually. But yeah, she picked him up in the gym. But a couple of other points that we see in this episode, Rita, future mother-in-law, arrives, and there's this tension between Rita and her mum as well. Where that kind of develops over the next few episodes. Dexter as well, he does try to end things with Lila, but it doesn't end as he was hoping, because he ends up showing her the dead bodies in the morgue, and I think he was hoping that would kind of scare her, but it has the opposite effect on Lila, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. I wouldn't go as far as to say she was turned on by it, but she had that wide-eyed look of fascination, didn't she? Definitely.
And which prompts her to kiss Dexter goodbye. And if I recall, it was a good kiss on the lips. If not, I think it was a peck and then a kiss.
It was too far. It was
definitely.
I don't know at this stage if Dexter realised what had just happened there, or that was inappropriate behaviour. But it's definitely inappropriate to kiss someone like that.
Yeah, your sponsor, definitely inappropriate to
especially when you know he's in a committed, loving relationship as well.
Indeed.
So Lila knows what she's doing. I'm not sure Dexter does at this point.
Yeah, and we haven't spoken about Dokes for a little while, and Dokes kills the bloke who killed the victim earlier. Now, Andy, can you remind me on this one? Because I don't know if I turned off here or not. So, Dokes kills the bloke. Now, this bloke, I believed, is the one that killed the woman. But I can't even recall, why did the bloke kill the woman? Because wasn't she married to someone that was in like the special forces? And I can't remember that. I'm having a bit of a mind
Was
fog
she
here.
Was she having an affair? Or am I confusing something completely different there? Or,
Do you know which one I mean? Where he kills the bloke on the boat?
Because he finds him on the boat, and that's... let me find...
The bloke says, "Oh, will you do me a favour?" Kind of, he says, like, "Let me have some time to get away." Or, sort out some business. Why are you doing that?
He'd murdered his own... I'm not sure why, but he murdered his own wife, didn't he?
So it was his own wife, yeah.
Yeah, the Wikipedia summary doesn't really give much more detail than that.
Yeah, I can't remember. And like I said, I don't know if I just switched off at that point, so I missed that. But it is later on. He does come clean, because later on they make Maria makes a comment that he's done a couple of kills, Doke. So it's not like he's trying to sweep this one under the carpet or something. But I like this next bit, because we see Dexter kind of break into the police compound, and he sabotages the morgue, and he makes it look like a dump truck. So I liked how Finn's kind of ended there, because he was getting very worried about what they were potentially going to find in the morgue when they were examining the bodies.
Yeah, if you ruin the temperature, the atmosphere of this makeshift morgue that they've built, it's going to destroy all the evidence, so he'll be in the clear. That's his thinking, at least. And the way he does it is quite clever.
Yeah, definitely. And this is where we get the reveal, Andy, don't we? Between Maria. I'll let you do this one, Andy, because you've alluded to it earlier about Luguetta.
Yeah, this was a legitimate shocking moment to me, and I couldn't remember it from watching it the first time round. So when I saw this again, I did say WTF out loud. So the new lieutenant, she's been suspecting that her fella's cheating on her, and he is cheating on her with Maria, it turns out. And it's been all part of a plan that Maria had to try and, get her job back and send Esme packing. I was legitimately shocked by that.
I did remember that one, Andy. So I couldn't remember. I remember her working against Esme, but I remembered it was something to do with a fella. But yeah, she does fight dirty. So Andy, how many kills did Dexter get in this episode?
So no further kills in this episode, unless you count all the dead bodies in the morgue. But they're already dead. He's just ruined corpses there. So then there's no new kills. So let's move on to episode 5, which is The Dark Defender. Where did this one come from? Yeah, go on, explain that.
I like this one, Andy, because I used to read comics. I like graphic novels, and this is a comic-based kind of episode. Dexter finds out that there's a comic based on the Dark Defender, which is obviously the Bay Harbour Butcher, and then he starts imagining saving his mum in this episode.
It does, yeah, and I think it kind of helps him remember certain things, doesn't it? Because he's talking to Lila about his mum, and I don't think he's really opened up about what's happened before, but he seems to have this recall that there were 3 men involved, but he has no idea what happened to them.
No, indeed, and that prompts Dexter and Lila to go on a little field trip, a road trip, and that's very cozy, that is, and it's not something that I'm sure Rita will be happy about if she ever finds out.
Yeah, he's not very forthcoming with this information, is he? But yeah, this is when he opens up to it, and again, I've made the note, you can just tell she's not quite right, but Dexter is just completely blind to it.
Like most men, they're oblivious when the opposite sex are flirting with him.
I mean, I don't think anyone's ever flirted with me, to be honest. I've never seen it. But, I mean, Lila is quite obvious, though, isn't she? Because they're sharing a motel room, I think. I think he claims it's an adjoining room later on, but I think, there's a room. She pops off to the shower. Nothing wrong with that. Miami's a hot place, you need to have a shower. But she leaves the bathroom door open, doesn't she? And while she's getting undressed, she knows exactly what she's doing.
Yes, he's getting hot under the collar, because he's on the phone at this point, isn't he, talking to Rita?
He is, yeah, as this naked woman is not parading in front of him, that's probably, but, not so subtly revealing herself to him.
Yeah, try to slowly seduce poor old Dexter.
Move on to just, again, some of the other characters in the episode. So Dokes and Maria are working together again, and he's figured out what's going on between her and Bertrand, which was the Lieutenant Esme's then fiance. So Dokes is wise to her. I don't know if he's wise to her plan, but he knows what's going on, doesn't he?
Yeah, she can't pull the fast one Dotes, because he does make a comment about, I'm sure when he says it to her, and he says, like, I've worked with you for like 2 years or something, so he does know how she operates.
Yeah, and before we get back to the main story with what Dexter's up to, Deb is still with the gym guy, Gabriel, his name, but she thinks he's betraying her because he's writing something about the Ice Princess. So of course that's got to mean, everything that's gone on with the Ice Truck Killer, and he's just using her to, write a story and, get financial gain from it. So she's not happy about that. Turns out, though, as the episode unfolds, he knows nothing about that because he's been out of the country for so many months, and he's a children's writer. This is just a kid's book that he's writing.
I was really confused about this, Andy, because unless it's covered in a later season, I honestly thought that Gabrielle was actually a kind of like a stalker, and he was like a serial killer groupie, and I don't know why that came from. And I thought originally, when she started to look at the emails, I thought she was going to find something about like him talking to his mates to say, I slept with the Ice Princess or whatever. So when it turned out that it was a children's book, I had totally forgotten about that. So I generally thought that there was some kind of something going on with him, and he was like a serial killer groupie.
That's the impression it gave to start with, but yeah, then I'm not sure if it is. I think it is genuinely he was a kids writer. I don't know if there are other things,
it says later on,
but I don't know if something happens in future series to contradict that or not. But yeah, she's still in a fragile state, isn't she? But should we get back to Dexter, because his is the main focus, and he's with Lila on this road trip. Did you have any other notes you wanted to share about what goes on?
Yeah, so the only two notes really is that Dexter and Lila are sharing a moment as well, and as part of this, Lila's started to open up as well, and she's confessing that she burnt down a place, killing someone, which is an important detail that might come up later in the season. Indeed,
yeah. So they're definitely getting closer, and the purpose of this road trip was for Dexter to confront one of his mother's killers. I think, if memory serves correctly, the 3 men I mentioned earlier, they do some research. 2 of them are either dead or in prison, but one guy is running a bar. So Dexter goes to the bar, tries to talk to him, doesn't really work, so, he wants to kill him. But Lila manages to talk him down. This whole thing's getting quite messy, because this is, again, an opportunity to kill that he didn't take.
So obviously, I've jumped a bit forward here, haven't I, Andy? Because this is where he does come back, and I believe he's got some blood on him, but he says it's not his, and that's when they're kind of laying on bed, and it's, would you say it's intimate? It's definitely, she's kind of like stroking him, and that's obviously the bit where she shares about her confession.
She's comforting him.
Yes, isn't she? That's the word.
Level of appropriateness, I guess, to be determined. It's it's strange. There's nothing obviously sexual, but they are on the same bed in a motel room, and he's upset, and she's caressing him to try and calm him down. There's levels to this. I think I'm going to put all the blame on Lila for this. I'm not going to blame Dexter here. But my final note before we move on, and I'm just trying to recall why I wrote it. I think this is the marina, isn't it? Doesn't he go to the marina where his boat's stored right at the end of the episode to clean his boat? Because despite the morgue incident in the previous episode, they still think they can salvage something from the algae, and it's only from certain marinas, and it just so happens they've narrowed it down to one of the, I think it's 3 marinas, and one of them is where Dexter's boat is, and where a lot of police have boats, apparently. So he goes to clean away the evidence. Doesn't realise that this camera's been installed.
Indeed, and that's how it ends. But the police over there must be a nice little pay packet if quite a few of them have boats. It must be a nice job to do.
Yeah, good, nice work if you can get it, I suppose.
And what's the situation with the Rita's mum, Andy, at this point?
Well, she's moving to Miami, isn't she? So, she came to visit and she just won't go away.
Just what you need, another interfering woman for Dexter. And that does bring this episode to a close, and 0 kills again. So I wonder how many we're going to end up with, because he's not been prolific in this season so far. And that brings us up to episode 6, and I love the title of this episode, Dex, Lies and Videotape.
Yeah, I
love that.
Yeah, it's a good title. My notes here are very random. I might just go through a couple in no particular order, but one thing I found quite amusing was Masuka trying to explain his quote-unquote internet activity to Lundy. Masuka is one of my favourite characters as well as Dokes. Masuka is just he's just a funny, dirty little bastard, isn't he?
He is funny, and I don't think Lundy is exactly warming up to Masuka. He is, like you said, he's very dirty. He's quite, I would say, it's the kind of behaviour you get from men, maybe at college or high school, uni, whatever it is in America. He doesn't seem to have grown up, has he?
No, not at all. He's a teenage boy trapped in a man's body. I know the feeling. Because I've not really grown up either.
So what's your points, Andy, in terms of kicking this episode off?
Yeah, so there's that. I think there's a question mark over whether Lundy is actually on to Dexter, because the way they shoot it, I don't know if it's just like a TV trick, but they're building tension, aren't they? It's like he's closing in on him, or at least Dexter's got that feeling he's closing. I think this is really, really well done, how they kind of do that dynamic.
Well, I agree, but also we do find out Dokes is getting suspicious of Dexter again, because Dokes, I didn't like this by Dokes really, because Dokes is openly talking to Deb in the office about Dexter's addiction problems, and he realises that Dexter has been telling porkies, but I think that was very underhanded by Dokes to be very open about it.
Yeah, very, very presumptive that he would tell Deb about his supposed addictions. Of course, she's very surprised when he accuses him of such. But yeah, Dexter versus Dokes is back on.
You're loving that, aren't you?
Yeah, I love it. Let's more of that, please. That's what I want to see. Let's talk about Lila, because she's making her appearance felt in a number of ways, isn't she, in this episode? The first one being that she comes round for dinner at Rita and Dexter's, so she gets to meet the family. It's not going to be awkward at all, is it?
It is so awkward, and Dexter must be, even though he plays it fairly cool, I don't think it's really noticeable about it. I think there's a bit where she starts talking about Dexter's mom, isn't it? And he kind of like looks up, kind of thing. But yeah, very, very awkward. But not as awkward as it's going to get, because Rita pops round to Dexter's place to kind of gel it on. And as they're gelling it on, Lila leaves a voice message on Dexter's phone, and he's about to either pick it up or knock it off, and she says something like "don't," and he just lays there, doesn't he? He don't move, and that's where she starts saying about sharing a room or going on a road trip together.
Yeah, she's really dropped him in it. Not only I think she slags Gail off, she might have had a dig at Rita herself as well, and then wait till she finds out about us sharing a room together or something along those lines, and it's like, oh boy. This is not going to end well, is it? I guess shall we jump ahead, because continuing on with this, Dexter and Rita have this big falling out. So Dexter goes to see Lila, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And I'll give you my exact quote here. And for those who've seen the episode, you'll know what I mean. I put, "Oh Dexter, what have you done?" And then in brackets, because this is an interesting question. You know, there's a philosophical debate to be had here. Is this the equivalent of the Ross Rachel "we were on a break" moment?
It could be, but he doesn't use it like that at all, does he? Because later on, he goes to see Rita, and she says something like, "Did you sleep with her?" And then he says, I can't remember the exact words that he uses. I don't know if you remember.
I think it was something like, did he say no? Not that time.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, it is. He should have just used the Ross. We were on a break.
Yeah. So, yeah, this is not a good way to end things for this episode. Dexter's really dropped himself in it. Let's continue on. We do get one kill in this episode, and I don't think either of us have made notes, have we? Oh,
he gets a kill on the
note,
vigilante killer.
The guy from the bar. Is it the guy from the bar? You know, the one who killed his mum.
Yes, and it kind of goes back to your point, Andy, where you say it's setting it up as Lundy is kind of suspicious. Well, it set it up to be suspicious of Dexter because he actually goes on the crime scene and they're in like a shipping container or maybe a train cabin, whatever you call it.
It's a disused
and
railway
he's saying about
thing,
how
isn't
untidy he is, isn't he?
Yeah.
And so you think because Dexter says, "Oh no, Lundy's seeing how precise he is," and he turns and sees Dexter laying out all his equipment from his bag. But you're right, one kill, and that's the vigilante killer, and then that moves us on to episode 7.
Yeah, we're at the halfway point now. So this episode is called "That Night a Forest Grew."
And I did remember quite a bit of this episode, Andy. You know, with the bit how it opens and the bloke covered in blood. And I recalled this as the one where he gives Doak some dodgy information. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, oh, this is the bit where he kind of starts being a bit more proactive in his kind of battle with Doakes.
Yeah, there's some good things that happen here. And I guess it goes back to his code from Harry. You know, first point is don't get caught. So he's fighting fire with fire a little bit here, isn't he? Now, Lila is still in town. She's still very much with Dexter. And I put my first note as a question. And does Dexter have a new addiction?
Lila.
Yeah, indeed.
Maybe. Lila seems to be someone that kind of maybe understand Dexter more than Rita could understand Dexter.
They seem
They're spending a lot of time together.
They are, and he's doing a lot of physical activity with her, isn't he? Certainly seems to be the case. I'm jumping around a little bit. There is a scene where Lila is at Dexter's flat, and Deb is around. There's candles everywhere, but I like the way that Lila kind of introduces herself to Deb, where she goes to the fridge for a drink and closes the fridge door, and Deb's looking at her and like, what's going on? But Lila's, not in all her clothes, shall we say, and she introduces herself, and this is a quote: "Hi, I'm Lila. Part of my tits."
Yes, because then that's where she goes in to the bedroom, and Dexter's laying there, and all the aforementioned candles is in that room. Because at this point, Deb doesn't realise Rita and Dexter split up, does she? So this is a big shock to Deb.
It's all happening quite fast, isn't it?
Yes, because we've got we find out Doakes is still investigating Dexter, so he's hot on Dexter's case. we've also got the bit where Maria and Dokes are clashing over Dexter. I find this intriguing, Andy, because I don't want to like do spoilers or jumping ahead, but Maria and I suppose the whole police department, or especially that team, are aware that Dokes and Dexter have this issue. But I don't recall Maria having any inkling into Dexter until a later season. So I always find these bits quite interesting, intriguing, because it's like Maria just doesn't kind of understand why Dokes has it in for Dexter, but obviously later on she's going to get that kind of suspicion herself, doesn't she? Which I can't remember which season it is, but it's, you know, a big part of one of the later seasons.
Yeah, at this point it's weird because obviously Dokes and Maria are close friends and go way back, so you would think that naturally Maria would take his side. But as we saw through season 1, she's very flirtatious with Dexter and has a bit of a soft spot for him. So there's a bit of an internal conflict, but I would have said, just based on how we believe their friendship to be, that she would have taken Dokes aside, but that's certainly not the case.
Because you would have thought, you know, being a police officer, you would have thought if you were Maria and your ex-partner had this kind of suspicion of a colleague, you would, like, you know, if you've been working with him for years and you've been an ex-partner of him, you'd think you potentially kind of investigate and help him, just to either put it to bed and make Dokes kind of move on and not waste his time, or actually, you know, there could be something there. She kind of just kind of bats it away without giving it any kind of real thought, which is a bit, I think it does conflict with her being a police officer.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's continue on Dokes versus Dexter, shall we? Because this is a nice subplot that's going on. So you mentioned obviously that Dexter gives Dokes some incorrect information. I think what Dexter does really well is the whole blood report thing. So the information he gives is basically, this is what the blood report says. So then Dokes uses that information as part of his investigation, and he arrests the wrong man, doesn't he? Whereas what Dexter's actually put in the report is that no, this is not the guy. This is something completely different, and it makes Dokes look like incompetent. So it's really well played, I think.
Yeah, because he even manages to slip the blood report on his desk as well, even though Dokes has chased it up. But by that time, Dokes has gone to interview the suspect, and Dexter then has left it on the kind of like the in tray. I think he might put it underneath one of the other reports or something. He doesn't just leave it on top. So he's definitely being proactive and starting to kind of fight back, because he's been, apart from slashing the tyre, he's been quite submissive really in this, and letting Dokes kind of not necessarily get the upper hand, but kind of like, you know, like we said, 38 days, just keeping his head kind of under the radar.
Yeah, it's like he's been avoiding confrontation and just trying to keep things smooth so far. But now he's on the offensive, and that leads to what is one of my favourite scenes of the entire series, actually, and that's the little chat that Dokes and Dexter have in Dexter's lab.
Yeah, and this is... I found this really, really good, because Dexter... initially, I think he thinks Dokes might be recording the conversation, doesn't he? He kind of makes a comment about that. But then Dokes says something, and Dexter is then at ease that he can't be recording the conversation. I don't know if it's like alluding to like entrapment or something. And he goes on the offensive physically as well, Andy.
Yeah, it's so good. I can't remember what he says to him, but basically... he gets right in Dokes' face, doesn't he? And basically says, you know, I've got you. Yeah. So something, yeah, you're in my back pocket. And just gives him a little headbutt, and then walks out casually as if nothing happened. But of course he walks out from the privacy of his lab, where it's just the two of them, into the, do you call it the bullpen? Is that what the
Yeah, I
Americans
would say
call
the
it?
bookend,
Yeah,
yeah.
where all the other detectives and officers are busy at work or eating donuts or whatever it is that American police officers do. And then Dokes just attacks him, doesn't he? And it's a great scene.
It is a highlight, I think, this season. And it doesn't go well because Dokes gets suspended. So has Dexter won this battle now? Dokes is potentially off the playing field. He's no longer going to be harassing Dexter. And Dexter can kind of focus on the Bay Harbour Butcher case, which, going back to the Bay Harbour Butcher case, Debs and Lundy share a kiss on the bench. And I made a little comment, which is very different to your comment, because my comment was a nice bit of simple piano score here, a very nice romantic scene. And then what was your comment, Andy?
Yeah, that was nice. My comment, and I'll give it your word for word in my nose. Deb and Lundy is weird and it's gross. I'm sorry, but oh no. Every time they're on screen together, because my wife's been watching this series with me as well, every time they're on screen together, she just shoots me this look of pure and utter disgust. And I have to agree with her. This is it's not the way God intended.
She could be he could be a sugar daddy.
He could be a sugar granddaddy.
I guess you're not a supporter of large age gaps in a relationship then, Andy.
I am all for two consenting adults or multiple consenting adults doing whatever it is they want to do. So I have no problem with the concept. I've got no problem with two people wanting to be happy. I do have a problem with an old dude and a young bird on my TV screen doing the things that they're doing. I don't need to see it on my TV.
Usually those kind of things are on your laptop screen or maybe your mobile phone screen. But I just thought the contrast there, where I'm getting romantic. I love that nice little bit of simple piano. And then you're obviously the flip side of that comment. Now, I just want to close this off, Andy, before you kind of close the episode down, because Lila has been trying to get hold of Dexter as well throughout this episode a few times, and she manages to sell her artwork, but she's just miffed at Dexter. So this kind of grip, I don't know if it's manipulation, kind of is, she's kind of losing that control over Dexter. And I don't know what your thoughts are here, Andy. So she ends up burning the metal workpiece. Now, my comment was, this is probably the first time that we kind of get this confirmation that she is being manipulating Dexter. But then I was thinking, maybe that's kind of been evident before, and I've not necessarily, or it's not being as clear cut and maybe hinted at. But I think this is the first definitive bit where, yeah, she's definitely like manipulating him, or kind of play Dexter.
Yeah, it's been ramping up, hasn't it? So at this point, Rita is Dexter's ex, but the kids are still fond of Dexter. I think he goes to, is it Cody's school play or recital or something? Like, obviously Lila's not happy about that. But yeah, we've said for a few episodes that there's something off with her. Bit hard work, obviously. She's ruined the relationship with Rita and Dexter. Now Lila and Dexter are in a relationship of their own, but there's this possessiveness going on. But I think the burning of the art piece confirms that not only is she possessive and dangerous, but that she's got a bit of a screw loose. Because she mentioned an earlier fire. Could have been accidental. She obviously showed somewhat remorse, but now you're thinking, hang on a minute, was that fire accidental? And all these kind of pieces are now slotting into place. So it's taken a very dark turn. My final note, and then we'll move on to the next episode, is a suggestion for the title of this episode. Now, for those of you who have read the Dexter books, they all have alliterative names. I've got some on my shelf behind me. Just bear with me. And so we have things like Darkly Dreaming Dexter, Dearly Devoted Dexter. I think this episode could have been called Dangerous Dickhead Dexter. I will sign off with that. And just to confirm that there were no kills in episode 7.
So, episode 8 is called Morning Comes. So, Andy, do you want to kick us off?
My notes this episode are pretty much exclusively quotes. So, I don't know if you want me to run through some of those and then we'll start covering some of the plot points.
One of them's caught my eye already.
But one that made me laugh out loud, and I've wrote the quote, but I've not written down who said it or about who. So I'm struggling to think who it was. I think it might have been Masuka, who said, "That's exactly how Hitler walked," which I thought was amusing. I think was it about Lundy? He said that.
It must be, but I don't recall that quote. Is this the one where Dexter is kind of being utilised a bit more? And
it seems,
Misaka.
yeah, it seems to be worming his way in, or Masuka has that feeling he's worming his way in. So I think it's that, but I thought that was a funny quote. Another one that made me laugh, and I think this was Deb talking about Lila, where she called her a gross English titty vampire. Another, it was just one of those episodes where there was just so many things. But another amusing one, and then I'll pass over to you to get into some of the serious matter. Was I think this is Masuka with Batista when they meet Lila, and Masuka says, "How come you get a hug and I get a pat on the nose?" And Batista replies, "Because you're like a retarded puppy."
But some of those did make me laugh, Andy.
I'll get onto one or two more in a bit, but I'll let you advance the story a bit.
Just a couple of things. Rita tells Dexter to keep away, so it's clear Dexter wants to move on. Now, Lundy starts to investigate the police department, so we know now that we know that Dexter's obviously the Bay Harbor butcher, but Lundy's getting that suspicion now. And I thought this was really fascinating, and I didn't recall this. Lundy catches Dexter out regarding an old case and the mistake he made with the blood report, and which ultimately leads to the villain getting off, and Dexter obviously then picks him up and kills him. And Dexter explains it was overworked and made a mistake. Now, I personally thought that Dexter was a kind of an A-star employee, and I didn't think he got anything wrong. So I found that quite surprising that he made a mistake that was documented. So I found that a bit of an interesting reveal, and so I don't know if you want to comment on that.
I'm trying to think back. Is this one of those where he made a mistake on purpose so that he could be the one to kill him?
Yes. Yeah, that's what happened.
But
I was surprised that he did it on like paperwork, something that could be, potentially brought against him.
It goes against the whole don't get caught.
Mantra,
doesn't it?
So that was surprising. And you see Dexter going bowling with Lila, and which obviously kind of leads into this date night that Andy mentioned with the boys. And Dexter is attacked by the bloke who killed his mum, who I can't remember his name, in the car park. Yeah,
so I need to jump in and apologise, because I think I mentioned earlier that he killed him earlier, but it wasn't. I was getting confused. Yeah, the person he killed in episode 6 was actually the mock killer who was claiming to be the Bay Harbor butcher, or a vigilante version.
Yeah.
I think
he's a vigilante.
Yeah, I think I made comment that it was the one who killed his mum. So I made a mistake there. I won't edit it out because I'll just apologise and say I was wrong this time.
As a married man, Andy, it won't be the first time that you've had to apologise and admit that you're wrong to your spouse, like every married
yeah.
man.
Now I'm admitting to the worldwide public, I made a mistake, and I am now correcting it.
Very good. Dokes learns about the bad lab report as well from Lundy, which now gets Dokes thinking, Dexter. Because he even makes a comment, doesn't he, that he wasn't aware of that because I think he says something like they just found out that it was thrown out or something, so they didn't realise it was to do with a bad lab report. And one more thing, Andy, from me is that Dokes breaks into Dexter's place. So Dokes is on the offensive now.
Yeah, and he's found the blood slides. This feels like game over in some regards. I mean, obviously we've still got 4 episodes to go, but this is quite a pivotal moment.
This Andy, so obviously we've watched this before, and this is one of the things I find frustrating is like TV programs or films where obviously we know why they do it, but if you're in that situation, surely you would just take it to the police department, or in this case, just phone up Maria. Why keep this to yourself? Because I know in terms of the storyline, but in real life, you wouldn't do that, would you? You'd be documenting it, or I know he obviously goes away, but you'd be communicating that with someone, because if you keep it to yourself, obviously things can go pear-shaped.
I guess the only thing is he wants to build an absolutely airtight case against him. I guess that could be the only reason to not share at this point. But you're right. You would think something like this would be enough.
Yeah, no, I think it's a valid point, but I think considering he had worked with Maria and you've got Maria looking out for him because she's tried to get him that job interview at the security firm as well, which I think she even says it was like a 6-figure job offer. You'd think you'd be going to her and finding, giving her some more information.
Yeah, things are really starting to unravel now. I think let's end on the final point, and we find out that, or Dexter, finds out that Lila was the one that set him up in the bowling car park earlier on, and also he finds out that she's been messing with Rita in some regard. I'm trying to remember exactly how it goes down, but the quote that I think this is an internal monologue quote, isn't it, where he says, "It's one thing to fuck with me, it's another to fuck with my ex-girlfriend who hates me. The Lila experiment is officially over." Apologies. Let's move on to episode 9, though, shall we? At this
How many kills, Andy?
We did have the one kill, and that was, of course, the man who killed Dexter's mother. Jimenez, I believe his name was. So we're on to episode 9. Resistance is futile.
Leguetta is trying to get hold of Doke, so he's gone missing now. And I'm just going to pick out some points. And we know he's gone missing because he's gone to... where has he gone, Andy? It's the Caribbean, isn't it?
Is it Haiti?
Haiti, yeah. Yes, Haiti. That's the Caribbean, yeah. I was thinking, is that Central America? But no, it's the Caribbean. And much to the disdain of Andy, I bet, Deb and Lundy spent the night together. And Lundy then gets a lead on the case, which he keeps to himself as well. He doesn't share that with Deb. And Lila goes for a drink with the boys and Dexter. So Andy, what other kind of things... Because I could see it, actually, Andy. You've got an opinion on Deb and Lundy.
I've got many
spending
opinions.
the night together.
Yeah, so my wife audibly kind of gasped or groaned, kind of made a kind of noise because Lundy was nude on screen, which I guess she doesn't want to see that, which fair enough, but it is gross that they're still together.
So to look forward to, Andy, when you're older with the missus.
Yeah.
You know what her reaction is going to be now?
I mean, it's not too dissimilar now. Never mind when I get to Lundy's age. But Dexter apologises to Rita. I think he's kind of realised the error of his ways. I won't read my next comment. It's a bit inappropriate. But I will say that one thing I noted, he's being followed again, isn't he? And he thinks it's the FBI.
Well, he is technically correct, isn't he? It is the FBI. You find out later. Dexter discovers the blood slides are missing, and Dexter is then taken in by the feds. So, he's been followed, and now he's been taken in, and it is very much. Oh no, Dokes has obviously done something with the slides, and that's it. It's all over for him now. That's it.
This is really well done, in terms of how he's picked up at his flat. He's basically frog marched through the office, isn't it? And
that's it. Yeah,
you kind of get that impression that everyone's looking at him like, oh, we've caught him. It's over. And he's not in handcuffs. He's not been arrested, but it just the way it all is set up. You think, oh, this is over for Dexter. He's been caught. How's he going to get out of this one? But then, of course, he then sees the slide box on Lundy's desk. It's game over, right? But no, they think it's Dokes. And all of a sudden, game on again.
It is well done. It's brilliantly set up, Andy, as you say. I just want to jump forward, Andy, and we see Dokes. He does confront Dexter, because if I recall correctly, it's when he's on like the jetty, and he notices a bag is opened, doesn't he? And he kind of turns, and Dokes has a gun on Dexter as well, and there's a little struggle here, a little fight between Dokes and Dexter.
Yeah, Dexter is disposing of a body, isn't he? And Dokes catches him, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're the bait of a butcher." But the fight, they have a bit of a fight. They struggle. Dexter ends up getting shot, but still manages to overpower him, doesn't he?
He does. Dexter can look after himself, and it goes back to an earlier episode when Dokes has obviously done the background research, because he comments, doesn't he, that Dexter did some classes on some kind of self-defense martial arts, doesn't he? I can't remember what he said, but it's not just like the basic one, was it? It was like an advanced level.
It's something along those lines. But there's a bunch of stuff happening as well. We see there's a flashback of Harry and Dexter going to see an electric chair killing. Lila's obviously still around, like you mentioned. She goes for a drink with the boys and Dexter. Batista's quite besotted with her, isn't he? That will re-emerge in future episodes. And also Rita kind of wants him back, but at the moment she calls, he's sat in the back of a car with some feds who are are these protective detail or something at that point, so that's really, really awkward. And then the ending with Dokes and Dexter really kind of ramps things up even further.
It does, and because of the situation with Dokes, there are 0 kills in this episode, and it brings us nicely to episode 10, so there's not many episodes left now. And another great title, a play on words, play on a film that had a very similar name, There's Something About Harry.
Yeah, there's my first 2 points. One is Dexter's personal life. Him and Rita have agreed to quote unquote hang for a bit. I guess they're just going to take things slowly. I guess that's what that means. I'm long time married, so I'm out of the dating game. I don't know what the kids say these days. But on the professional side of things, I guess Dokes is locked up, as mentioned. But surely he can escape that cage. That didn't look like a particularly difficult cage to escape from.
No, considering his ex-armed forces, you'd think he'd easily break out of that one. But it does, we do see Dexter return to his apartment, doesn't he? And he is nursing an injury. This, if I could recall correctly, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the first episode that we have a flashback where the actors that are playing Deb and Dexter are the kind of adult version of. But now I'm questioning myself saying that, because do we have an adult version of Dexter when Harry is having his hospital treatment and
We
he's
do,
outside? Yeah, maybe it's the first one we see of Deb. I just remember seeing it and I thought, oh, Deb and Dexter are the same,
I think
actor and actress.
it's a much younger version of them, isn't it? Or supposed to be, aren't they? Like,
They're at the crime scene, aren't they?
They're trying to pass as like teenagers,
Yeah.
even though they're not. So they've just given them some like, dodgy wigs, haven't they? It's
Yeah.
it's quite.
It's
amusing.
funny that, isn't it?
Yeah,
Make him look younger, just longer
yeah.
hair.
It didn't work, but you get the idea. Dexter's got a bit of an emo fringe thing going on, hasn't he?
But that's kind of my comments, Andy, at the moment.
Yeah, there's a few things happening. So obviously Dokes is locked up. He teases Dex about something to do with his dad before he passes out, and this whole thing is quite risky. It's like, should he not just be killing Dokes to get rid of the body? But no, Dexter wants to know more. So there's a bit there that kind of is to be resolved. And I guess it's what we later find out as Dexter looks into further. It's linked to Harry's death, which he's thought all along was to do with heart disease, but that's not quite true, is it?
It's not, and I didn't recall this one, Andy, so I thought it was a nice revelation, really, about what happened. And it is quite shocking for Dexter as well.
Yeah, because we find out that Harry actually committed suicide. It was an overdose, but Matthews kept it quiet. That will play out a little bit later on in the episode. But I wanted to touch on Lila, if I may. She's still around. She's still causing trouble. We see her buying some roofies, which is a very strange thing to do. And later on, we also see Lila and Angel finally getting it on. I think this is what Angel's been wanting. He's been helping out with decorating. He's obviously very attracted to her. And she likes it rough. And very quickly this scene takes quite a dark turn. And everything starts to kind of come into place as to why did she buy the roofies. She's she's saying she likes it rough. We can see that this is heading down a really dark path.
Yeah, definitely. I find it intriguing, Andy, that you refer to as Batista as Angel, and I refer to him as Batista.
It probably flips, and I guess some people he probably should be referred to as Angel because of his Latino roots. But I don't know if that's just a pronunciation thing. So I'm open to interpretation. Angel, Angel, Batista. Whatever you want to call him.
I love his wardrobe.
Yeah.
I do like his hats. But there's also that revelation where we find that the flashback shows that the criminal got away because of a faulty warrant as well. And it kind of hits home because Dexter kills this drug criminal in front of Dokes, and then that prompts that flashback, doesn't he, to Dexter, which kind of about his dad walking in on kind of Dexter's kill room, doesn't he?
Yeah. And the end, or one of the last quotes was again Dexter's internal monologue when he says Harry walked in on what he created and he couldn't live with himself. Very poignant words, but we're definitely getting towards the business end now. There was one kill in that episode, so now we're at the penultimate, episode 11, titled Left Turn Ahead.
And a couple of points, Andy, I just want to not get into kind of any major detail here, just kind of some highlights. Dokes is trying to manipulate Dexter, getting in his head. That's happened a few times now with Lila as well. talking of Lila, she tries to frame Batista for rape as well. So that's obviously the plan that she set out in the earlier episode. We've got a new character, brilliant name, Max Adams joins the Special Task Force as well. And Lundy is under a bit of pressure there as well. And my last comment, and I thought it's fitting because I don't like Dokes, even though I think Dokes is a really good character in this season. I didn't really like him in season 1. I think it's quite fitting that he escapes the cabin, and then he ends up getting into trouble with a couple of goons. And if I recall, he gets hit on the head. And I did have a little chuckle to myself, Andy, because I thought, that's quite fitting.
Yeah, so close yet so far, wasn't it? Going back to Lila, she had Dex down as her emergency contact, which is a bit weird, and she's requested a rape kit. She's going too far, isn't she? But the line that she says, which really kind of shows that she is completely over the edge, is she refers to Dexter as her real soulmate. And I could argue she has a point because of what they've shared through earlier in the series, but no, it's not based on anything positive. I do want to give you this quote because I thought it was quite amusing, and this is Batista talking about Lila when he says to Dexter, "You warned me about her, but my dick wouldn't listen." Which I found that quite amusing.
Yeah, true words have not been said before. So we've got. Is there anything else you want to cover, Andy?
Well, we're getting to the business end, aren't we? So you mentioned Dokes. He's been caught by the goons. But of course that's bad news for Dexter as well. So they've got to work together. And Dexter actually ends up saving Dokes' life. But it's in his own benefit. So he's got to cage him again. So it's like so close yet so far.
Yeah, and he reinforces the cage as well, doesn't he, with padlock.
Yeah.
Chains from memory.
He does, yeah. And it seems at one point that Dexter's going to turn himself in. There's a lot of heart-to-heart conversations between Dexter and Dokes on the other side of the cage. And he says to him, he just needs a day to get things in order. And there's a few scenes where it does feel like he's ready to let go, and he is going to finally turn himself in, and this is going to be the end of Dexter. And it's almost like he's saying goodbye, isn't it? In a lot of ways. It
is. He's trying to leave everything nice and tidy, because he's got his OCD. It's a long day, though, Andy, isn't it? Because he tries to do a lot of things, and I'm thinking, is this like a 24-hour period, not like a close of play period? He's using the full 24 hours here. And I personally thought this had a great ending. So I don't know if there's anything you want to cover, but I love this cliffhanger ending.
The ending was fantastic. And it involves Lila. She finds Dokes. And one of my questions is, why did Dex not clear his sat-nav? Because that's how she found him, because he'd got an address in his sat-nav. That just seems amateur hour stuff. But that was a really good ending, because at this point it could go any number of ways. Dokes is locked up. Lila finds that Dexter is not there. What is going to happen? You need to tune in to the final episode, don't you?
Yes, which is next week. It's brilliant. We watch him on demand. And just a quick recap before we move on to next episode. There were 2 kills in this episode. Now, the last episode of season 2 is episode 12. Now, I'm not happy with this episode title, because I do think it's I don't know, I think it could be better. It's called The British Invasion. I'm not happy with that one.
Yeah, they've obviously run out of good titles. So we're back where episode 11 ended. Lila to the rescue. Or is she?
Dokes must be like, considering that he's just tried to escape, got caught by the goons. Now this young, pretty lady has come to the cabin. Surely he's going to get out now. He's like, nothing will go for Dokes.
But not the case, because I think I've just noted, I've seen that your note is the same as mine in terms of what it tries to say, but you put yours more eloquently than I did. I put kaboom. That was my note. Whereas your note actually explains what happened.
But I think yours is straight to the point, not fluffy or anything. I do. The thing, I know it's not funny, Andy, but it's. I don't think, did we really need to have the scene where we find the body? Because I think, for us, we know Dokes is dead, but you do get that graphic scene of. And from memory, does he even have legs? Do you know?
I think it's just a torso, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's so. Just a torso.
And if memory serves correctly as well, they don't identify him straight away. They find the body, and then later on, it's Dokes, isn't it? So it's kind of I don't know, the way it plays out. You're almost thinking, well, maybe it's not Dokes. Maybe he did get away somehow, but no, he's dead. You can't survive an explosion like that. But so that's the end of Dokes. It's not the end of proceedings, though, isn't it? There's still a few loose ends to tie up here.
Yeah, we've got. Well, I want to talk about Lila. So, I don't know what do you call it, Andy? Because I made a note, a sea life centre.
An aquarium of sorts.
Yeah, I thought the aquarium.
Sea life is maybe like brand name.
Yes, and we're not advertised by the Sea Life Centre, just to be honest. Even now, I probably go there once a year in good old Skegness. But I thought it was good because they meet up. She obviously knows who he is. They meet up in public. Dexter, I don't know what your opinion is. I kind of knew he was stringing her along, obviously. And he essentially just tried to get her back to the apartment and away from all the public. But things don't go Dexter's way.
No. Enter Deb to ruin Dexter's plan. It was one of those where, I mean, you've seen my notes in terms of where it goes. I just put Deb ruins Dexter's plan. Fuck. Because it was looking so good at this point, like Dexter was going to tie up all the loose ends, Lila would be gone, and everything could get back to normal. Obviously, that's now not going to happen because Deb's around.
Yes, it's gone pear-shaped. Now, I haven't made any other comments here, Andy, in terms of that bit. My kind of comment is more about. It is about Deb, but it's about Lundy. He's kind of moving on. Bay Harbour Butcher case is all done now, all sorted out. And Deb has this decision to make around, does she go with Lundy? Does she go to the airport? Or does she stick behind and help Rita and Dexter? Because their kids have gone missing.
They have indeed. And Lila again. She's at Rita's. She drugs the nanny. She's got the kids. This is not over as yet. But it kind of makes the decision for Deb, doesn't it? She has to go and save Rita and Dexter and the kids. So Lundy's off for his next job because, as you pointed out, the Bay Harbour Butcher case is closed. Dokes has been fingered for that particular crime.
Figuratively. Now, I personally didn't remember this because Lila, she escapes, and I was thinking, how does she escape? So we have the fire, don't we, at Lila's place, and Dexter manages to get the kids out via the window. He's struggling to make it, but he pulls through and he breaks through the wall. Now, Lila makes her escape to Paris, and I couldn't remember how this ended until I saw her in Paris, and I remembered.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Is that when you kind of recalled?
I remember that she got.
Gets her?
Yeah, she got away. I couldn't remember where it was they went, but I knew that she went somewhere, and Dexter followed, and that's exactly what's happened. Dexter's tracked her down, kills her. It's all over.
It kind of closes with Dokes having his funeral, and not many people turn up. So from memory, Maria turns up, Dokes' mom and sisters, and Dexter. And I think it's weird Dexter's turned up.
It is,
because
yeah.
you're kind of putting himself on the radar with Maria. Because I know obviously she suspected, well, she knew Dokes suspected Dexter, but considering everything that is out in the public, why would he? It just looks a bit weird that he's gone to the actual funeral. He's kind of putting himself out there. Why do you need to do that?
Very strange, yeah, but it is very much over, isn't it, at this point? So there's one kill in this episode, that being Lila, but the way it ends, there's no real cliffhanger or teaser for season 3, is there? We have a clean cut-off, as it were. Dexter would appreciate that. A nice clean cut-off. But there will be a season 3, and we're going to talk about that in next month's monthly special. But that's the end of season 2. Shall we do what we do here on the rating room and talk about some ratings and rankings?
Yes, let's do that.
So we've talked about kills for each episode, so let's wrap it up overall. So in season 1, we had 7 Dexter kills, or an average of 0.58 per episode. In season 2, we had 8, so 0.67. So season 2 was slightly more deadly than season 1. Let's do some rankings though now, Jay, of our own. Let's start with the main villain. Why don't you give us your ranking in terms of main villain of season 2 versus season 1?
So I personally didn't really like Lila. So I've put her in at number 2. I think Eye Struck Killer is my favourite out of the 2 villains that we've had in season 1 and season 2 in terms of main villains. Lila, I just think in terms of a villain, she was obviously manipulative, but she wasn't you could say psychologically she was damaging to Dexter, but not from a physical, a presence. She wasn't that intimidating or dangerous to Dexter, even though she obviously tried to burn him alive. But that's why I think Eye Struck Killer, if I had to go against one of those, I'd definitely be picking Lila than the Eye Struck Killer. So I did like that. And, it turned out that the Eye Struck Killer is Dexter's biological brother. So I think that adds to his kind of mystique, charisma in terms of being the main villain. What about you, Andy? Do you disagree or agree?
I agree with what you said, but I disagree with your ranking. I think Lila was a more, I would say, a more dangerous villain because of the psychological elements that she played and the manipulation and how she toyed with his emotions, and he's, basically emotionless. Eye Struck Killer was about death and killing, and obviously there's the family ties, but it didn't go to the level of emotion that I think Lila did. She uncovered parts of Dexter that had not been seen. She exposed him, and he opened himself up to her. So he was very vulnerable in that regard, whereas I don't think he was ever really vulnerable with the Eye Struck Killer. So I've got Lila slightly ahead in my rankings as a more ominous and dangerous villain.
I think that's fair comments there, Andy. And the when you were saying about kind of manipulating Dexter, I think by the end of the season, it's Dexter that's trying to manipulate her, trying to get her back to the apartment on her own. And obviously, in the end, she does cotton on and takes his bag. But moving on, I didn't struggle with this one, Andy. So this is the season. So this is where we're ranking each of the seasons and giving it a rating out of 10. So for me, season 2 of Dexter was an 8 out of 10, a solid 8. But I did, like I said, I don't necessarily like Lila. I think she's gorgeous. But the thing that I think saved this season was Dokes. Even though I didn't like Dokes in season 1, I found him quite interesting in season 2. So for me, he kind of saved it in terms of the ranking. He gave it, he pushed it to the 8 out of 10 for me. So just a recap, I gave season 1 9 out of 10. So that means season 2 is in 2. So in my little rankings, I got 1 and 2 in 1 and 2 order, keeping things nice and tidy. What about you, Andy? What did you give season 1 as a reminder, and then therefore what ranking is season 2?
So like you, I gave season 1 9 out of 10. Fantastic opening to the show. Season 2 I've also given 9 out of 10, but I've ranked it slightly above season 1. I think, the combination of Lila's character, the extra depth that we got from Dexter's character. We saw new sides to him. We saw a layer that we've never really seen before. And I think also there was a lot of other subplots as well that were really, really interesting, because he's not only going against Lila and trying to resolve that problem, she's also messed up his relationship with Rita, which is becoming ever more prevalent and ever more complicated. Then there's also this small matter of the Bay Harbor Butcher that they've got to try and resolve. So he's effectively investigating himself, but he's got to make sure that he gets away with it. But then he's not on the task force, so how does he do that? And Dokes is on his case as well. There's a lot happening. There's a lot for him to deal with, and it just made every episode must watch. And I just think the whole thing just took it slightly above where season 1 was. So a very, very good start to life in this Dexter journey that we're on together, and season 2 has slightly improved on season 1 in my view, but both 9 out of 10. So that kind of brings us to the end of this marathon Christmas / Dexter season 2 special, which we called Dexter's Sleigh Ride, a festive forensic holiday. And I think that's quite fitting, considering the themes that we have spoken about over the last 3 hours or so now. But thank you everyone for listening. Hope you enjoyed what you heard from us today, and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone. I listened to Christmas songs today for the first time. Anyway, back into it. We're talking about Christmas films and talking about Dexter. So you can send us any questions, suggestions. Is there any Christmas films that you'd want us to cover next year that we haven't discussed this year? Any kind of other feedback you might have. We do have social media channels, or you can contact us via our email address, theratingroom@gmail.com.
You can also find us on our website, www.theratingroom.com, our YouTube channel, @theratingroom.
And in terms of social media, you can find us at The Rating Room. And make sure you subscribe to all our channels as well, so you can stay up to date with the latest news and find out what episodes we're coming up and any kind of other monthly specials that we're going to cover.
Yeah, I'll give you a bit of a taste of what's coming up in the next few weeks. So we're going to let you enjoy your Christmas. I hope you all have a fantastic time, whatever it is you're doing and whatever it is you're celebrating. In between Christmas and New Year, we're finally going to bring you Toby's interview, where we talk all things Tom Hanks. And then as we enter 2024, all new content of The Rating Room. I've got a feeling, Jay, it's going to be a really stellar 2024. In fact, I think the first episode is not going to be stellar, it's going to be interstellar.